Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys. Sam Strike.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson is absent. And I guess if we have a consensus of commission in Chairman Watson's absence, Vice Chair Turner will chair the meeting for the evening, if he so accepts.
Anybody want to take it away?
No, that's why we hired you.
Yeah, we're fine with that arrangement.
That high pay rate.
So we may proceed on that basis.
Okay. If I may, for your review and hopefully approval, payroll request.
Oh.
So we'll just sign that.
Yep. Just need to sign and pass it around for at least 2 other signatures.
We have a quorum on this film with 4 people.
Yes. I'm sorry. Did forget to say that. Just for your review and approval is my hours sheet.
Today is the 20th, right?
Yes.
On vacation tomorrow.
Yes.
Do I need to date this?
Yes, please. And also just to take care of some slips that I have. This is a request for reimbursement of postage expense. Technically due to next week, but. And then Kurt, for your review, only acknowledgement, just initial, if you could, next to the red circles, there are 3 copies of postage receipts that I'm seeking reimbursement.
Hi, Judy.
Good evening, sorry, I'm late.
You haven't missed much, only signings.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you for catching it.
Ready for the first agenda item? Other than what we just did. Legal notice for Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Law 131, Section 40, as amended. On the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, August 20, 2013, at 7:45 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex, located at 39 Central Street, to consider a request for determination of applicability application filed by John E. Sullivan for proposed soil evaluations for design of a sewage disposal systems possibly within the DEP-approved groundwater protection area Zone 2 at 42 Newbury Road, map 5, parcel 40 in Raleigh, Massachusetts. Doug Watson, Chair.
You're up, sir.
Right.
Introduce yourself and your.
My name's John
proposal.
Sullivan. I'm the owner, one of the owners at 42 Berry Road. Obviously, my septic approval for my house has been approved, but I found out that my house is the end of the new well water area, which falls in your jurisdiction. So anything that I do in that area, I need to get town approval for, and that's why I'm here, to be you're okay to do some soil evaluating as a part of a process in trying to sell my house.
I was a little confused by the maps, which didn't seem overly specific. Perhaps you or Brett could explain what these lot things are and where they're
Well,
exactly.
this is our original property that my parents bought in 1972. And then back in the 80s, my father bought this parcel from my neighbor. So as of the deed, the lot lines were never changed. It was just, this line was added, and it was just never conformed into one lot. And this is my house, this is our 14 stall barn, and then this is a storage building. Basically, there's a small, I put it on the market to try to sell it because I really can't afford it anymore. I haven't been able to afford it for a long time. It's something that was just left to me and for me to deal with. And as a whole, it's very overwhelming, I think, to people as a whole. 10 acres, multiple buildings, what to do with it, a lot of work involved with taking it over. And there really is no people interested in it that way. So unfortunately, I was hoping somebody would just enjoy it, buy it as is, and off I can go, but it's not looking that way. So I have an engineer working with me to kind of come up with a plan to make something big into smaller pieces so it becomes more interesting to people in a smaller scale. And these soil evaluations are to come up with an idea of how and where and whether we put a road with a cul-de-sac in it, or we just scale it down to a common driveway with just 3 lots. So the evaluations are just to come up with a better plan, a better idea of what we can do.
Where on here are the proposed soil evaluations?
The little X's.
Oh, lots.
Yep. Because each lot should have 2, depending upon how the configuration is. So basically, I've used a very basic number of 290 by 130 as a lot size, which equals 40 square feet. I'm just gonna plunk it down, and that'll just give us a starting point.
What's the frontage here? This is.
It's 188 feet.
That little section?
Yep, from here to here is 188 feet. That's why, the common driveway only works with 3 lots versus, doing a 50-foot wide easement with a road with a cul-de-sac to make more lots. My intent isn't to overdevelop it. It's to make it, keep it as rural looking as possible, enough so I can piece it off so I can move on with my life.
This is only in the water district, or is there any wetlands?
This is, go ahead, Brent.
Well, I was gonna say, the reason the application was originally tendered to us, and only a depiction of the front of the parcel
Hold the chair.
Sure.
was presented was because initially we thought the only regulated area on the property was the Zone 2. And so, in the course of doing the site visit, and with John and I going to the back of the property, we discovered that out here, which is why I brought this ortho photo in with us, that there's actually a depressed area that contains bordering vegetated wetlands, and more than likely is the runoff path for possible intermittent stream flowage during times of seasonal wetness, I guess to express it. So there's a hint of this by that wetland area there, but then the only other wetland areas that's depicted is way back here, actually on town conservation land that's back there and abuts this property. This is actually the open space from Kathleen Circle that we recently consummated the transference, and then there's a separate parcel here that I don't know the history of it, but it is Conservation Commission open space. So once it discovered this other area out there, had a conversation with John, and that's why my memo reflects a lot of discussion, because we initially didn't know that we were going to encounter bordering vegetated wetlands with its associated 100-foot buffer zone on either side on the property, as well as it goes off to it. It's possible that as it makes its way through the woods here, that 100-foot buffer zone comes in from other sides. The property rises up, this is a hill here, and then starts heading down a little bit, goes down even more, and then over here it goes back up again. He's got a fair amount of topography or relief on this lot, but also it's quite lengthy too, so.
What's that red dot?
That just is where, when I key in the address, it sticks a marker in what it believes is the center of the parcel. That's the marker showing the approximate center of that property.
Okay.
How far does that go back?
Quite a ways. I don't know the exact length of it.
That isn't even a full.
Well, it's 9 acres long by almost 200 wide, so it goes
Yeah.
back quite a ways. 1,400.
Yeah, yeah,
It's gotta be 1,500 feet.
yeah.
Yeah, it goes back just over 2,000. It's 330,
Yeah.
315, and
So we're not even looking at the
1424.
whole, and that we're not, no, this, well, I suppose this we are, but on that we're not even looking at the whole lot.
This
Yeah,
is-
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, that was the best I could do, still having it
Yeah,
show
sure.
enough details so
Sure.
we could tell something.
Brett, you have some recommendations?
Yes, I do. So in regards, well, I just read most of this into the memo, so I'll start with the middle paragraph. The applicant is proposing to conduct soil evaluations for possible future development, which may include subsurface sewage disposal systems as well as subdividing the property. The initial area at the front of the property is depicted as within DEP-approved groundwater protection area Zone 2, where the commission as a normal practice oversees excavation activity. The areas of soil evaluations in the front of the property are proposed on level terrain, except at the edge of the developed portion of the lot where you climb a slope to enter the woods. This is the only area where I would recommend that erosion controls be installed prior to any excavation. In the course of the site visit, in traversing the full depth of the parcel, it was discovered that a linear area of bordering vegetated wetlands crosses the width of the property in the rear forested section. It appears that due to tree cover, the wetland resource areas do not appear on the state's mapped wetlands overlay. The area also appears to be slightly depressed and may conduct seasonal runoff and function as an intermittent stream. The forested area has a sparse understory and is also crisscrossed by ATV trails and cart paths. The confined width of the wetlands makes the prospect of bridging it with equipment to perform soil evaluations possible. The applicant has access to a steel plate which could bridge the depressed area and prevent rutting and soil compaction to the resource area. The soils in the adjacent buffer zone are dry and firm with apparently low organic layer. so the equipment should be able to traverse the buffer zone without excessive soil disturbance or compaction. I have included suggested conditions below to protect the just discussed regulated areas.
Before you continue, because have you seen this memo?
Yes, and this is what we had talked about yesterday.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Unless there are additional concerns to be addressed, the commission may wish to consider closing a hearing and issuing a positive determination, option number 5, with the following conditions for the Zone 2, and a negative determination, option number 3, as subject to the Wetlands Protection Act relating to crossing a BVW from the associated buffer zone. Conditions are as follows. Number 1, Raleigh Conservation Commission and its agents shall have the right to enter and inspect the property at any time for compliance with these conditions in the town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw. 2, an appropriately sized spill containment kit, parentheses, or materials for spill cleanup, shall be available on site at all times while equipment is on the site. 3, temporary erosion control used if needed to prevent erosion and sediment transport into undisturbed areas and onto abutting property. Number 4, inspection of erosion control by Raleigh Conservation Commission or staff if utilized. 5, soil evaluation holes to be backfilled and stabilized using mulching and reseeding to promote revegetation on the same day they are excavated. 6, the erosion control shall be properly maintained if installed until final stabilization of the disturbed areas by vegetation is accomplished. 7, equipment passage in the wooded portion of the property shall utilize previously developed cart paths and woods roads and avoid, if at all possible, any tree cutting. 8, in the wooded area of the lot where the depressed wetland resource area is located, appropriate measures shall be employed to bridge the area that possibly functions as an intermittent stream and may be bordering vegetated wetlands. Care shall be taken to avoid tire ruts or compaction of wetland and buffer zone soils to the extent possible. Number 9, the applicant or his agents shall measure a distance of 100 feet on either side of the depressed resource area and are advised to perform all soil testing outside that measured area. Note, care should be taken with the same run of this resource area, which is located on adjacent properties, in order to employ the same offset distance to soil evaluation sites. And number 10, notification to the Raleigh Conservation Commission office upon completion of proposed soil evaluations, excavating, and stabilization efforts. Please advise me if I may be of further assistance.
Are you comfortable with Mr. Sullivan?
Yes?
Okay. Any further comments or questions by any commissioners?
Well, that means that some of these locations may not occur.
Yes.
Because of
Some of
the
them may.
resource area that you found.
Well, as depicted on the plan, this is in the Zone 2, so there, except for an adjacent off-site wetlands, which Mr. Sullivan already compensated for by where he marked on this parcel, well, it's not a separate parcel, but that portion of the property. Those more than likely will be in the areas designated. Again, we initially didn't know to expect and therefore didn't depict or map out other areas. But, yeah, as I discussed with him, I just wanted him to exercise the proper care
Right.
because of my knowledge of the Board of Health's regulations for where they consider.
And honestly, I haven't been out there in probably 25 years, and, and, you know, there are a couple of trails that I built when I was like 12 years old, still there, that people use, and a few of the town officials, oh, you're the one with the track, and it was a long time ago, so I was kind of surprised to even see the bridge out there, but anything out in that is gonna be very, very minimal, only because it's only as a potential option. So once we get anywhere near that, there's gonna be 2 holes way in the back, away from the buffer zone, and then 2 holes beyond the front. So other than 4 holes, anywhere near it, that's it.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
and then up on the plateau, 2 holes in the center. And up front, it's a little bit more because of there may be underwater detention basins for drain, you know, things like that. So the front has a few more holes than needed.
Okay.
But it's more just for exploratory, and we know what's there. gives more options down the road, so I don't have to do it once.
Sure. Well, my point was only that the plan as you have it laid out now might be adjusted based on your findings, so just so everybody knows that.
Yeah, and I was hoping to have something a little bit more elaborate for my engineer to pass on at this point, but he was away on vacation last week, and he, you know, so it's gonna be, you know, hopefully by the time I get the, time for the holes, and I'll have something a little bit more concrete, and I told Brent, as soon as they are in, they'll be put on the same plan that I have, and it'll be handed in, obviously, the Board of Health and you guys, so you guys have that, so.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Anything further, Brent?
I don't believe so.
So your recommendation is that we consider closing the hearing and issuing the positive determination option 5 with the following conditions that he's read for Zone 2, and with regard to the Wetlands Protection Act, the negative determination option 3 as it relates to crossing a BVW from an associated buffer zone. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay.
Want to wait for this?
I'm gonna be sending it to you.
Okay. All right, when you send it, I need the second page to that thing you wrote on it, first page. I don't have the list there.
I'm sorry?
The list
on
that
the
you.
back.
Maybe.
Oh, I do, sorry. I gotta go.
I do the same thing all the time.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Good luck with that.
Mr. Chairman, the acting chair. The 8 o'clock agenda item, the applicant has submitted a request for a continuance. We have Ms. Mann, representative for the residents of Raleigh Country Club, the 8:15 agenda item. Would you care to consider that item for discussion now?
Do
Do
we
we wanna-
continue?
Go ahead.
Do we continue the 8 o'clock first?
You can do it later on within the course of the meeting,
Why can't we do it right now? Okay.
because I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things that occurred
Okay.
in regards to that, if I
Okay.
may.
All right. Well, we'll entertain Ms. Mann then.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Jill Mann here on behalf of Carriage Pines LLC and the Raleigh Country Club LLC. As we had discussed last time I was here, in January, I think, I was submitting the conservation restriction to Irene Del Bono for the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And she just took a very long time to review it because she's very short-staffed and had a lot of CRs. So I basically got her comments about 2 weeks ago, and I was able to integrate them into the document. I sent a marked version to Brent and also to Katrina. It's my understanding from the various comments that was reviewed by town council. Irene and I went back and forth on her comments. I mean, essentially, there was a lot of restructuring the agreement, just the way she likes to see things in certain areas. But most importantly, probably, is to kind of go through some of the comments from Judy Pickett, your counsel, and then go through the comments as well from Brent, and be able to kind of try and get this put to rest. We, just to give you an update on what we are doing, you probably are a little interested. I know it wasn't within your jurisdiction, any of these projects, but still. At the present time, we've completed the first entire phase of the subdivision as far as roadway and infrastructure construction. We have 36 homes that are going to be sold. We've sold close to 18 of them already. So almost the entire first phase is sold out, so it's really going fast, so construction won't be belabored. It'll probably be pretty quick, and we're anticipating potentially being able to complete the subdivision within 2 years of commencement, which is fantastic and great for the neighbors, I think, as well. So that's just a little update for you. So with regard to some of the comments from, I think maybe the best way to start is from Ms. Pickett's. I got confused because I got this email saying that there wasn't a subordination provision within the term and body of the document, and it absolutely is, and we actually even went over
She,
it.
just to clarify that, she did not receive the same packet that you sent prior to that.
No, it was the one that you gave her, the marked copy, that was exactly, it was in there, it's always been in there, affirmative covenant C.
Oh, okay.
Always.
I-
So it doesn't matter, it's just, she said it wasn't there, it absolutely is, it's in affirmative covenant C, grantor shall record the Essex Register deed simultaneously with this restriction, all documents necessary to subordinate, blah, 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 blah.
What does that mean?
Oh, so whatever,
That'll teach you the
because
blah,
our
blah, blah.
mortgage, no, I mean, because it just says, all these other things, but it's still a subordination aspect. So when you file your mortgage and it's before any kind of an easement or any kind of restriction, your mortgage is subject to it, nor is your mortgage deed. So the bank basically doesn't have in place a conservation restriction essentially. So assume that there were to be a default by the borrower, and the borrower were to then foreclose on the property, they're not subject to conservation restriction unless and until they subordinate. This bank is.
They being the bank.
Yes, and the bank is
And any-
absolutely aware of it. And I did prepare a subordination agreement, but it was weird because Judy says she reviewed one. I never gave you it, because I hadn't had the bank, so I thought it was kind of strange, but I do have
You
one.
included it in the packet that you sent to Irene, that you copied to me, and I responded to Judy's.
With the was it, I don't remember including any subordination agreement. That's why I was
It's
kind of.
listed on the cover letter
It-
that your staff person prepared to Irene Lalonde.
I think that was the original subordination for the it wasn't this. It wasn't the agreement. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't this.
Pardon us if we get confused by documents
I
with the
didn't-
same title.
No, but I didn't send it. That's why what I sent, there's a complete package of what I sent to you. And it's not in there, so I don't know. But this is the subordination agreement. And you know what, not that you're gonna review this, it's something Judy would review, but I think you can see, and I can explain what it is, and then you'll understand it better. So basically, what this agreement says.
Is there only one mortgage on this property?
Yeah.
No other liens? Okay.
So the lease agreement is being subordinated to it, and that's already been done too. But he doesn't have an ownership right, so we already did it. If you notice in the body of the document, in the first page, it actually says that. So anyhow, I don't know why I have all this extra paper. So if you don't mind just sharing, so
Okay.
Brent, I thought I had, would you mind sharing a copy so I could just show Brent this one? So essentially what it says is on the bank, you recognize the mortgage, and you can see where in the first whereas provisions, I actually recognize what the property is. It's 76 acres of land that are subject to the restriction. And then the paragraph beneath says, okay, it's this mortgage, and the mortgage, we actually have had a couple of amendments to the mortgages because of construction. We amend to take into account the need for more financing, which is what those are. I'm about to close another amendment, and the bank's reviewing this subordination at the same time. So basically what the subordination says, and the only real impact of it is, it clearly says that the lender acknowledges that there's a conservation restriction, that the lender acknowledges that its interests and rights under the mortgage are subordinate to the conservation restriction, that in the event that there were to be a foreclosure, deed in lieu, any successor in interest that flows out of the mortgage, that interest is subject to the conservation restriction. They don't have the right to take it and claim that it isn't there. That's what that document does.
It's a practical question, why would the bank sign that?
They know it's there. We've already discussed it. It's
But
a
if
term
they,
of our.
if they have to foreclose on the property,
Yeah.
it severely limits their ability to.
The only reason they
Sell
took,
that.
the only reason they took an interest, so the way we did this is we subdivided it, so the conservation restriction land is owned by a totally different entity. The only reason they took it is because they were fearful that if they didn't own both parts and we didn't do what the special permit says, then they wouldn't have the right to enforce conservation restriction. So believe it or not, that was a protective measure because the special permit dictates the conservation restriction. So if you remember, when the planning board actually endorsed that special permit, there was an entire section that said what the CR had to be. So the bank is exceptionally concerned that something could in fact happen and that they don't have control over the land that has the CR on it. Because no matter what, those properties, I can only sell 6 properties before, 6 units, before, I have to have that conservation restriction on record with the subordination. I'm bound. So the bank knows this, and they're saying, we want control over that property. If you go belly up, we want to be able to file that restriction, and the only way they could do that is if they have the right of foreclosure against it. That's why. So it's a protected means, because I actually had initially said, it's full disclosure, they know there's a CR. We had originally asked them not to encumber the property, but their counsel advised them, look, in order to ensure that you can comply with the special permit requirements, we have to take it, that's why. So that's why also when Judy came back and said, I think it's in the best interest of the town to have the subordination take the CR and be responsible for filing, no offense, but I think I'm probably the better party, because I'm gonna get it done, and I'm gonna get it done all together. Because I fear giving anybody my document that's gonna have any kind of an impact with regard to recording. I'm gonna walk into the registry, I'm gonna record my conservation restriction, and I'm gonna record my subordination at the same time, because I then need to give to Katrina and the planning board evidence of the recording of the CR and the recording of the subordination, so that I can get more lots released. And I don't want anybody to have control over that except for me. Because we have an awfully large economic interest, 30 units, you can only imagine the value of that. But out of respect for her, I don't think she realized and didn't really maybe connect the fact that there was that type of security protection for making sure the CR was recorded.
Well, we've already introduced the fact that due to some submittals apparently having either earlier versions of the same
Yeah,
thing
that
or
was
something,
true.
so if you're presenting me with this so that I
The
can
bank-
transmit this to Judy as being the most recent version, so that we can.
Yeah, this is the only version for the mortgage, so I'll email it to you, and I'm emailing it to Banks Council, because we have a closing for that. You'll see in here that there's an August 29th amendment. I just put it in because I'm gonna have that in there. So he's gonna approve, I'm gonna have it signed so that I can get it done and in. So that's.
Well, the sooner we're all looking at the same thing, the more sense our comment memos will make.
We never, again, I never gave this, there's no way she had that. It's impossible. So I don't know what was.
Right, she didn't have it. As I said, I will state again for the record, January 23rd, you presented me with a package that you had transmitted to Irene Del Bono. It contained a cover letter which said it had a consent and subordination.
For a lease.
But
Right.
it didn't go on to say what it was for, it just
Right.
had the same title.
Oh, I thought you gave her this package, that's what I thought you
No.
meant, because she looked like she referred to the fact that you never gave her the new package that I just submitted?
I transmitted the electronic version, the cleaned up copy, and the redlined copy
Okay.
of the CR document itself.
Did Irene had already done?
Nothing else.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure that she had seen what Irene had commented on, because what I had provided to Brent was, basically a document with everything in it. This is what Irene had. Okay, so then, I noticed in her letter, Country Club, I have to tell you, it took me, I'm not even kidding you, half an hour to figure out that I just had spelled county instead of country. I had no idea what she was talking about. But then, it like dawned on
Well, she
Marblehead.
did,
Like dawned on, well, she never
You
said it
didn't
was
say
country.
section one, first paragraph.
No, but again, she never said it was I did
Oh.
not see the missing R. It was a Scrivener's error, and you know when you're looking at the forest from the trees, I'm blind, I couldn't see it. But there's
Well,
the
our
new page.
mind corrects it. too.
But most
Our mind
cer-
has the best spell check.
Boy, does it ever, let me tell you. So anyway, that's corrected, and there's the page. And but when I do it, I'll do it. And when she says, my understanding is National Heritage Endangered Species Group does not want the locations of threatened species identified, we did not identify the locations specified.
And we've covered that.
Well, why don't we talk about it, because I don't know that we've covered it. Who's we?
Well, in the use of the alphanumerical designation is not, does not release the data into the public domain of what the exact species and its occurrence is within the designated area, as well as the fact that 2008 version of their priority habitat and estimated habitat map is publicly available
Yeah, that's all it
on
is.
the internet, so all you've done is provided what is publicly accessible.
Okay, so you're
So there was a
aware of that.
slight
Okay.
misunderstanding
I get you.
in what that actually identified in the public domain.
I get you. Yeah, because Irene had specifically asked for that language, specifically asked for that
Yeah,
map.
so,
Okay, good. Then when we get to the exceptions to otherwise prohibited uses, more or less override the prohibited uses set out, but given the primary use of the golf course, and the OSRD permit, this is not just surprising, however, priority habitat should be excluded from those exceptions. You understand that we don't agree with that because priority habitat is only excluded from use to the extent that there's a demonstration of raw land and that there actually are species to protect in that area. So you have to go in and get a no-take letter. No matter what, any activity within there, I don't care what I do, requires me to submit a letter to Natural Heritage to request permission. And that would actually go to, I think, Brent's comments and this comment. We're not going to agree in the upfront, look, we're not gonna touch anything that's in those areas. We're going to agree that we have to comply, just like anyone else would have to comply, and come back to you, as long as we comply with what is set forth in the orders, I mean, in the conservation restriction. Because we don't know,
why not?
because we don't know what those areas are for sure. They're supposed to be, potential for.
They're designated on the law.
Right, but there is activity already, and we're not going to agree to that. There's no jurisdiction to request us to actually designate areas, there's no touch. That's exactly what's being asked,
No,
and we
no,
can't do that.
that's not what's being asked. We're being asked that they be excluded from your list of exceptions.
That's called no touch, and we
No, it's
won't
not.
do
You have
that.
the ability to file, you have the ability to
We
file
already
an
have the
application.
ability, and you have the
Right.
ability to stop us, but we're not going to agree to a heightened level of control that isn't in existence for anyone else within the breadth of the agreement. We can't do that. I don't know what it would be. I know I have to file no matter what. If I'm in 100 feet, I have to file with you. If I'm in priority, I have to send a letter of request to take, or for a no-take letter from the, does everybody know what that means? I'm sorry, because Natural Heritage, you have to submit a letter. If Natural Heritage says you aren't impacting a species or aren't impacting a habitat, they issue a no-take letter. If they deem that you are, they issue a take letter, and then they tell you what you have to do. Either give them money, give them area, or not do any work. That's their requirement. And as far as, filing, we have to file no matter what. No matter what we do, we have to file. Just because it's in here doesn't mean we can do anything. We still are subject to the OSRD requirements and the Wetland Protection Act and your local bylaws, all of them.
So for the commission's edification, the reason that both Judy and I are making this comment is because the purpose of the CR, number 2 and number 3 are protecting various wetland-related natural resources, etc. Number 3, protecting natural heritage priority area. The document then goes on to list prohibited acts and uses, and under 3A is the prohibited acts and uses, and then when you go to section B, which starts on the bottom of page 4, exceptions to otherwise prohibited uses, basically it throws wide open the fact that you can do anything that is listed in those exceptions. That doesn't have anything to do with a regulatory filing, it just has to do with this CR. So the purpose of the CR is to protect certain areas that are designated as valuable and deemed as a community interest in protecting them. So the areas that we're talking about are extremely discrete. This is the boundary line of the parcel. This is the mapped priority estimated habitat area, right there. On the ORD, Order of Resource Area delineation that was voted on in 2005, this impounded ponded water area, this water area down here and this water area were all identified at the time as having the potential to be vernal pool breeding areas, which would, again, make them jurisdictional under our bylaw to a higher level of protection than under the Wetlands Protection Act. Either way, these are small, discrete areas already on the periphery of the course and do not cut off access points that can be utilized to go onto adjacent parcels where the applicant may in the future obtain additional real estate to expand the course. So just within the document of the CR, which would allow such things as gravel extraction, trenching for the burying of utilities, sewer transmission lines, stuff like that, we're just asking that the applicant exclude through just the use of inserting a word, a phrase, a sentence underneath the exceptions, that those discrete areas would be excluded from those exceptions that are mostly all allowed development activities. That's what we're asking.
And I'm gonna leave, if you could leave this, the
Oh,
reason
sure.
why, thank you. The reason why I'm saying that, in particular, the priority habitat area we can't agree to, the fifth green is clearly in it. So, we'll be disturbing this all the time. And all of this area is disturbed and used, and you can, golfers go there. It's not, we're not trying to get more than we already have. We're saying, look, if it's in the disturbed area that's already used for the golf course, I understand, I guess I should step back.
It's the
The whole-
undisturbed area that we're interested in. We've always stated that from the get-go, that we were interested in the
And we've said,
undisturbed area.
and we say that we will not go into the disturbed areas to the extent that they aren't necessary to like go in and put in some sort of utility, but we're not going to create.
Where does it state that you will not, that any of these
Right back here.
exceptions listed under B? Where is the phraseology within B that says that excludes the undisturbed areas?
When you go through and you look at the undisturbed areas, okay, so you look at number one, right? That's the one where we say we also include, well, we reserve the right time to take all of this. So number one, we can do all of these things. Number two, we reserve the right within the restricted areas, whether or not deemed disturbed, to do certain things. And we say mining, excavating, dredging, blah, 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 blah. I'm just not reading it. I mean, all of these work, we're definitely telling you, maintenance of good drainage, soil conservation practices, proper drainage, stormwater management, or other recreational use authorized under the OSRD decisions, provided there's no feasible alternative in any area not subject to this conservation restriction. We're saying to you, look, if we can't do anything else, we're not going to. If we can do it, the purpose of this OSRD, quite frankly, was to preserve the golf course. That's the main purpose. The secondary purposes are to maintain all resource areas. But the main purpose, and that's why the town changed the bylaw to say preserve the golf course. We have said, look, the only time we're gonna remove or destroy trees is for trail maintenance. Okay, so if we've got a tree that's hanging over, that's in an undisturbed area, and it's literally dripping on a trail that people can't walk by, we're gonna prune it. If we don't say that in the body of this, we're not able to. The next one, to maintain any areas as necessary by watering methods, landscape cutting, pruning, planting, applying fertilizer, herbicides, pesticides, otherwise incidental to the operation of the golf course, in accordance with its current practice. I can assure you that certain areas that aren't used for the golf course get fertilized and pesticide. They do right now, and it's not a disturbed area. I can't take the fifth green and put it here. I'm not allowed to do that. Nothing in here says I can. So you read that, and then it says, provided, however, we have to, the grantor shall endeavor to ensure the operator uses sound golf management practices. This was actually asked to be put in by Irene. And then if you keep going, to install underground utility lines. So perhaps there's something, for some reason, we have to go under the area we install, but we immediately restore. So we're not trying to disturb the top, we're not trying to disturb a corridor, we're not trying to do anything. It's just possible that you might have to put an underground pipe for some sort of a drainage situation. Then you look to erect, maintain signs, okay? Again, you want us to maintain signs. Do not enter, stop, no trespassing, whatever, trail, conservation area, maybe something that's educational. The next one, to maintain, store, use vehicles, car paths, other motor vehicles necessary for the operation and maintenance of the golf course and for public safety, which activities shall be, to the extent possible, limited to cart paths. I can't promise you that somebody's not going to come out there with a fire truck and need to drive through. If it's necessary, I can't help it. If we have to maintain something and there has to be a vehicle that goes in, it goes in, but it's only to the extent necessary. We're not saying establish a cart path through there, and none of this says we can. Establish monitoring wells, observation wells, chemical means and mechanical means to control nuisances, non-native plants. That's what this is saying. It is by no means giving us the power to take greens and put them in areas. It doesn't. And under the Wetlands Protection Act, I can't do anything with a vernal pool. I can't fill a vernal pool. I can't fill a vernal pool under your Wetland Protection Act. I can't even come, what buffer do you guys even have? You have a non-disturb,
100 foot
100 foot.
habitat.
So I can't, I'm not saying to you that I'm gonna try and breach any of your bylaws. I'm saying I'm gonna comply with every one of them. But in this body of the agreement, you have to give us leverage, because this is a perpetuity. I agree to something, I have to go, it's an act of legislature to get it changed. We protect those interests that are intended to be protected. We do. So that's why we're saying, you know, this requirement, that we don't come in here, it's just not possible. It just truly isn't. I can't tell you that, because then I can't prune, I can't do anything in there. And again, I have not drafted this with an eye to try and get more. It's been seen by so many people, and it continues to be so. I just can't give you something like that. And I don't believe that this document, given the true use, which is a golf course, is appropriate for it. I mean, that's my bit on it.
Brent, taking that into consideration, what you're talking about, what is your sense of where you're at on this?
Well, quite frankly, it seems disingenuous to, on the one hand, say that the regulatory coverage of the Wetlands Protection Act and our Wetlands Protection bylaw wouldn't allow any activities within those areas, but then to say within this document, we need phraseology that says, without limiting the generality of the foregoing, grantor reserves the right within all areas within the restricted area, whether or not deemed disturbed areas, to do the following, and then starts off with mining, excavating, and dredging.
But if
So,
you can't just read the words mining, excavating, dredging, you have to
Well,
read the whole thing.
Well, you should read.
I don't know, you should,
individually.
you definitely need to read the words, especially when it's the opening salvo to what follows as exceptions to prohibited acts and uses. So again.
But you have to read what it's talking about, what the mining, excavating, and dredging refer to. It doesn't mean I go in and I wholesale cut. It doesn't.
Well, then B, it says removing or otherwise destroying trees, grasses, brush, shrub.
For trail maintenance, which is one of your main purposes of an OSRD. Again,
So-
that's why you have to reading the opening salvo to any one of those exclusions would honestly put me on high alert as well. But my suggestion is that you have to read the closing of those paragraphs to see the interests that are truly intended to be protected above and beyond the Wetland Protection Act that already have protections. Are they protected? We're trying to do something for the town that extends to the golf course and to trail maintenance. And I would let you know that the third green, it's within your jurisdictional protection, by the way. Look at it. It's within, that's darn close, and it always was.
I think there's qualifying language in these things.
All of
Brent,
them.
they start off pretty scary, mining and excavating and dredging, but it goes on to say as may be incidental to or necessary for the installation of utilities or underground structures and maintenance of various things that are, lots of things that we would be in favor of. And the second one has to do, it's qualified by is required to avoid damage to adjacent structures and for trail maintenance. It strikes me as if these qualifiers in these paragraphs are consistent with the overall goal of conservation and protection of resources, despite the fact they're dealing with something that has a public use of the golf course. It's a
Right.
difficult line to walk, so.
But again, like I said, they were discrete mapped areas that, yes, there was previously altered areas right up to the edge of these, but the feeling was that if the document says that those areas are protected, why couldn't those unaltered areas be exempted from all the exceptions?
Only because you have in place guidelines and requirements. There's no need to do that within the body of a conservation restriction. In particular, since wetlands changed, that's why ORADs are only good for 3 years. So I can't say this, I just can't, because this is my base. No matter what, you look at this, and if I say I'm never gonna have activity here, I'm never gonna have activity here and here, I can't do anything other than go literally an act of legislature to get the CR changed. I am, again, I understand your concern, and if there's a way to address it, I will. And I believe I did by constantly monitoring, subjecting any activity to a requirement and a standard, because we want to make sure that we can comply, and we want to make sure it's clear what we need to do.
The end of those ACH provisions, Brent, there's a sentence that says any of the above referenced reserved rights shall be subject to all applicable federal, state, and local laws, regulations, and all permits. I think that gives us the right to step into a situation if we need to, if we see something we don't like.
Oh, for sure, if we're out there, you know, checking these areas, but I need to then transmortify and point out two things. That first off, vernal pools aren't designated or noted on the plans. And number three, the photo points don't document those features.
I mean, you built the wetlands on the plan, they're not certified vernal pools, so they aren't.
No,
You're
that's
correct.
why they were labeled in your opening page as potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the plan should be revised to label them as potential vernal pools. First of all,
I don't mind that. I just, you know, I would like to be able to get all the comments done, because we had never labeled them potential vernal pools, and we do identify them as such, but if you want me to put it on the plan, do I mind? No, absolutely not. I mean, it's potential,
I think it would be helpful.
absolutely not a problem.
Well, if the commission is, you know, comfortable, I'd make my state of my case.
Brett,
As
just,
one
I just wanna
point.
make sure, can you, it's this one,
I provided you a memo with the wetlands flag.
Oh, you
designation.
did? It says the wetland flag on it?
I have it here. Yep. At least it did when I wrote it.
Oh, I apologize, here, right in front of my face, it would be good if I could read it. Okay, perfect. Perfect, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'll have that done on the, Okay, so now, I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, we're on Judy's third thing, and now the fourth thing.
The fourth thing
with
we
the
talked about,
subordination.
yep,
You're
and
the-
I'll email
you'll
those to
send
you.
that to me, so
Yeah,
I
so you
can
can-
transmit it to her and see
Absolutely.
if we can fine hone our comments based on the correct document.
And you know, as far as her comment with regard to the public trail easement, I'm more than willing to take out that language, but I didn't want to for a couple of reasons. One, because it's a right that's being given to the town, and in the event that the golf course were to ever be conveyed, the public trail easement does become granted. So I really, I mean, it's your call.
She seems to feel that it needs to be described by surveyed nets and bounds.
Yeah, it really doesn't, because we show the cart paths and we identify those, and that's sufficient, because the rule of law states that as long as you are able to identify what those areas are by reference to a plan, you don't need meets and bounds. And we say all cart paths, so, I mean, again, this is
What if they
completely
change?
up to you. Pardon me?
What if they change?
then you get the right to go on those too, as a member. But as it shows on the plan, I just think you should, if it were my easement, or my town, I'd say leave it. It doesn't hurt you, and when and if, God forbid, the golf course were to ever terminate its use, do you agree?
That wasn't my comment.
Yeah, I
That-
know, I
That
know.
was,
I just-
that was the council's comment.
Yeah, I defer to
on-
the board, but my
so-
suggestion would be never to delete the language. Let people consider there to be a public easement.
Could you,
I'll communicate with
in
her.
communicating with her, could you also point
CC.
both of us to the exact section
Sure,
of the
the cart
CR
path.
document that names the cart paths and
Absolutely.
references to the plans, so maybe.
Yep. Yeah, cause it's daunting to go through that red line version, so section referring to cart path easement and, post golf easement, cause that's where it's really critical, cause if that ever were to happen, then this whole parcel becomes your playland. And then.
Now, in the first section, of Ms. Pickett's memo that we're looking at, you didn't comment at all. There was
Oh,
apparently a conflict about the address from the corporate filings.
It's only because they're moving. So I gave you the new page, and I put it down, so that's 191.
Okay, so whatever's on the website.
It matches, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And that was really it, but I didn't
For
know.
that memo.
Yeah,
And then she did
she did.
draft the other memo that had to do with the
The subordination
subordination, but
again.
that is subject to us getting the review of the correct documents.
Right, and-
So then I guess you wanna segue to my comment memo?
yeah, I had it in front of me 2 seconds ago, and I
Yep, you did,
managed to.
and I think you just touched
Oh,
on
here it
it
is,
before.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about in yours, we already talked about, the whole first paragraph.
Yeah, and so,
Right.
again, if we get,
I'm gonna identify
If
them
we
on
get
the
sort of-
plan like you asked.
yeah, if we get labeling on the plan or
Of
whatever
course.
that will need, yes,
Not a
so
problem.
that's fine, that's how the commission
And then it
feels.
says-
I just-
Okay, the omissions noted in my email do not appear to have been addressed. They absolutely 100% were. We had
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
originally
whoa, 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 whoa.
delivered a
Just as you-
baseline
just
of
as-
85, we delivered.
Just as you cautioned me to read the rest of the section, the problem is that there's no USGS topo map section.
Because we don't have one. We never topoed that. This is all we have.
No. United States Geodetic Survey, heard of them? They produce a USGS topo plan, and all you do is show your parcel boundaries on top of that, of the quadrangle for this area.
And I thought we had done that as part of the base plan, and then you had asked us to separate them to identify the, where we actually took the
No, but this is
pictures.
this is like a locus.
We can include that again.
This is like well, it's not again, I've never seen it, so to me, I've never seen it in one of these versions of the baseline
Because
report.
this was, oh, okay, that's odd, because I thought.
Those are
Richie
the
had given
photo
it to you.
points, that's a
Yeah.
different thing, but.
So you want the map that's generally available to the public? Is that what you're asking for?
We want the parcel boundary overlaid on top of the appropriate section of the USGS quadrangle.
Which is
showing
available to the public.
topography.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you want that to be a part of the conservation restriction that
No,
gets.
part of the baseline report.
Well, that
is
gets
it.
recorded, believe it or not, because it's a part of the
Well,
CR.
It's,
Okay.
it can be done as an 8.5 by 11, that's how I've seen it done before.
Okay.
Then again, the same type of thing on the National Resource Conservation Service soil survey, so that we have a depiction of the soil types that have been mapped by the National Resource Conservation Service.
And is that public, we didn't
Yes.
do anything back here,
Yep.
okay? So this is again publicly available for this?
Publicly available, yep. They've even got a nice web-based interface that will,
So it's just we
Give you a
download the
map
map,
and-
okay?
yep.
Overall.
And then depending upon, I don't know what the size of the parcel, it may have to be put in there as 2 8.5 by 11 sheets or whatever in order to actually show the soil types so that anyone can actually tell what the heck they are. It all depends upon parcel configuration.
And I was very confused about the affidavit of the photographer. I don't understand what you're talking about.
Well, the whole idea behind the baseline report,
Because I've never done one before.
What would you
Well,
do?
right.
What happened to the latitude and longitude?
well, that also has to do with the photo points or whatever. What that does is, the whole purpose of a baseline report is to provide a record of what the characteristics of the property are that are subject to the conservation restriction in a image type format. So if you have no idea who the person is who handled the taking of the photographs, and if they don't attest to the fact that they were taking these photographs and they all came from the country club at the points that are designated on the plans, you basically have images that don't have any progeny or whatever, or don't show their parentage.
I suppose.
Just belong with.
Right, and I suppose we could do that. That was the old.
Well, again, this is,
I'm
this
just,
is.
I have never seen an
this is the
affidavit by
standards.
the photographer. I've
This
done
is-
these before and I just haven't done them. So
Like
you
a
want me to actually say?
Engineer signing
You
off on. the
apparently have not
plan.
adhered to the standards promulgated by EOEA as well as also.
Irene said I didn't need it.
stewardship.
I'm telling you, that's why I don't understand. So you want me to put in an affidavit saying that the engineer took these pictures and that it was from these locations? That's what you're looking for?
And that
Photographer.
they attest to the true condition of the property.
Well, I mean, the photograph, so that there was,
Yeah.
that's why I don't get that. So the true condition of the, they're not attesting to anything, they're just giving you photographs to show. So you want them to say that they're attesting to the fact that the locations are sound? I just wanna make sure I get you the right thing.
That picture is where.
That they were on
it was taken.
237 Dodge Road at that point and took those photographs on
Oh.
such and such a date.
Oh,
And didn't Photoshop them or whatever.
Oh.
And put in the fog bank to conceal the fact that you've got a nuclear solid waste dump on.
Yeah, they were done at all different times, so it's gonna be a span, but I'll do that, I can do that. So just what I'm gonna do is have an attestation in the first page of the base report.
It's basically that they're just saying they're the authors of taking the.
Yeah, no,
taking
now
the
I
pictures
understand. I
and
wasn't
where they
really
were.
Picture
sure.
depicts
Actually taken
from
there.
this location and just timestamps on the photos, which helps
Yeah,
the effort
oh,
too.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
And redoing the fog bank pictures.
wasn't a good weather day?
They were apparently there very early in the morning when there was ground fog.
Hadn't burned up.
Yeah.
Photos of the vernal pool areas you want, of the potential vernal pool areas, I should say.
Oh, yeah, they took
Right.
them. They were of the, cause I could tell they took them from every, I think Brent had actually asked for that inclusion.
And they should be labeled as potential.
Well, I had actually originally asked about some points, which were the 100 series, numbered points being taken along the boundary line where it was accessible, so that we could actually see what the edge of the property looked like.
Oh, is that
You
what
do
that-
that to protect from intrusions from neighbors that
Sure.
like to extend patios.
Oh, there already is one, there's already a
Yeah.
violation, you
Yeah.
I'm serious. You can see it, it's like sitting here, and there's other things that encroach, oh, they always do. And we're not, what are we gonna do, make them move?
Hit 'em with
Yeah,
golf
it's,
balls.
you know, we wouldn't do that. And we notified them that they have an
Probably
infringement.
been hit already, I'm sure.
I don't, isn't that okay? I don't golf there. Is that like a high activity
Actually,
area
actually,
there?
that would be a stretch to really get it up there, but, hey, you never know, it's possible.
I could do it. If it's a bad shot, I could do that.
Well-
Anything that's bad, I could manage. All right, I think I understand that now. And that's not a problem at all. That's not a problem at all. And then from the municipal to recurring field inspection document to be completed, I don't even know what that is.
the commission needs to sign off on your conservation restriction application.
Oh,
There's a
the
section
application.
for municipal certification, yeah. And then there's also a field inspection sheet.
Yeah, that I didn't think I produced.
Yep.
Did I produce it? I
Yep,
did do it?
yep, we talked about that earlier,
Okay, I don't
and you
remember.
had, and you had produced it, but we just need to actually do the field inspection.
Sure.
And I would assume it makes more sense once all the corrections and stuff to the photos and
Yeah.
stuff, so I can come out, check the baseline report, check the
Be good
property.
to do it now too, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now, when do you think you can, if I get all this, and I can make this happen pretty quickly, because I understand. So I'll talk to Rich Williams, who'll be the engineer, who'll do all that, you know, revising of this, certifying, getting everything done, taking the pictures when we have to. And then, when do you think you'd be able to do the field inspection, and when we'll be able to get it in front of the selectmen?
Shortly thereafter, you do
Get it.
those changes, and I get it, and
Okay, so there's no impediments to your going out in the next, few weeks?
I've
A
seen
lot of-
lots of money.
No, you know what, it's such a vacation time,
Yes, the
every
kids
time
all
I
go
try
out
to
fun.
set something up, inevitably, it's like a domino with vacation, so I always wanna ask, okay?
Okay.
I'll get it to you right away.
I am trying to plan a vacation, but
Oh, I don't wanna be, I'm not doing this, I'm not trying to get you not to.
He's taking tomorrow off, so he
well,
won't be.
no, I
able
gotta
to-
do, I gotta do a little more than that, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have it to you tomorrow, I think that's
I
fair
know.
to say.
I know.
This is yours, Brent, I don't wanna keep it. Is everybody okay if I give Brent this back? Okay, so I get you, I know what I need to do.
Thank you for your responsiveness.
Oh, of course, are you kidding? I appreciate Brent putting me on so early. And we only, filed this a couple of weeks ago, so it was great. Is there anything,
About a week ago, actually.
well, with Irene,
Well,
we
yeah.
got to go back and forth finally. That took a,
Yeah, no, I mean,
just getting it
no,
done.
this is very good, I know, you can smell the finish line.
Oh my God, you
Smell
don't
the
even know,
talking.
you don't even know. Every day, Jill. I'm beginning to dislike my own name. Do you have any other questions at all about anything?
Nope, no, no.
Brent?
Questions or concerns? No? If they can provide some of the longitudinal latitudes for some of those photo points.
Okay. Is that, I have to ask, I
The-
don't know, I have no
the
idea.
app-
That
what-
is something else.
Don't you just need the outside boundaries for that?
The idea is to be able to go out into the field and stand on the exact spot that they took the photograph and look and see the same viewscape without some, horrible changes or something like that in
If
order
you
to
run
monitor
a
it.
GPS unit of some
Yeah.
kind, it'll say,
I'm sure the-
this is exactly
I'm sure
where that
Richard-
photo was taken from.
I'm
Access.
more concerned with getting the affidavits done so
No,
that we
GPS will
know
just
who
hold
the
it.
authors or
So you have to go
the
to all
photographers and all
125
that good
sites?
stuff.
Well,
That would be great, that would be.
Oh, that data
Just those-
is probably contained in that drawing.
Oh,
Okay.
That's true.
See, that's what I
He
don't
can-
understand,
if
okay.
If it's a CAD drawing, he probably can get that, he can just pick
Okay.
those
Yeah.
off.
So you just, that I understand,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Cause I'm
Yeah.
saying, could you imagine?
No, no, no.
Well, I was gonna say, because he said it on the surveyed plans, I think it's just a question of
Question of
just
just
pulling it out.
Pulling information
And
off
use
the
it,
plan.
and most of the time, what's done is they take an Excel spreadsheet and they just plug in the number of the photo
Okay.
point, and then they put the latitude, longitude next to it.
Okay.
Just-
Yes, I didn't have a chance to discuss your comments with Rich, cause he was gone
Right.
before I did it, so I couldn't even ask, what is it? All right, so
No,
then,
none of those tasks should be
Oh, do you
burdensome
want,
and
do
cumbersome.
you wanna, tentatively set us up to come in at your next meeting? When is the next meeting?
Well, I think it's gonna be.
Do you have to do that, or?
We, 48 hours in advance, I can get things on the agenda, but, we really need to do the task of having all this stuff done and going out and doing the inspection.
Oh, I can make it all happen before the end of August.
Oh, Gotta get it out to the fields.
Well, that's why I asked.
I
But
also gotta not be hit by a ton of golf balls, too.
Well,
so
that's,
the other
the
thing.
concern is,
Hard
there's,
hat.
you literally are gonna have to go out.
Bubble suit.
Um, I don't know, when is that golf course not busy? Is it?
Thank-
4, yeah.
Yeah. When it's raining, yeah.
So I'm gonna try, I mean, my time is I'm gonna try and get on your agenda for that evening, the
We
next
can
one.
put you on and then continue it if things are.
Yeah, cause then I can pressure Ralph and Rich to do it.
So you gotta have it done by,
But we.
Oh, I love going in tomorrow and saying you have to have this done by the end of the week. I'm always
Town
welcome.
council has some more things to do.
Well, yeah.
Subordination, we have to coordinate, and I have to get Banks Council and her into it. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Enjoy,
you.
enjoy the rest of the night.
So, are your motion to continue that until this topic for the next meeting? September 10th. So here a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? They're continued.
Take care.
You wanna go back to the land off Daniels Road?
Actually, both are 8:30
Yeah.
and 8:45. Votes are here.
here.
All right.
You want to read the 8:30 agenda item? There is no legal notice.
Sure. 8:30 PM, request for support to purchase Town of Rowley 24-acre salt marsh parcel land off Dyke Street, map 29, lot 4, by Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. Is that you? And your name is speaking loudly, she said?
Would you like me to come forward?
Sure.
I don't have to yell.
You may sit there. I'll have to stand.
Good evening, my name's Ann Gagnon, and I'm the Northeast District Land Agent for Mass Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. And thank you for letting me come before you this evening. I understand that this parcel is general municipal land as opposed to conservation controlled land, but because it's entirely salt marsh, before I went to the selectman's office, I figured I had better address the Conservation Commission to gauge your feelings as to whether or not you would approve of its acquisition by the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. The reason that we're interested in this parcel is, if I may, this green is land that's already owned by the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. And this is the parcel that we're talking about, this pink parcel. Right on the Mill Creek, I believe. And so we typically try to acquire in holdings so that we don't have to worry about management issues as to where exactly the line is, et cetera. But seeing as this is salt marsh, this isn't an area that we would typically, run out and try to acquire. However, we are in the process of trying to put together a NACA grant application, a North American Wetland Conservation Act federal grant application, which is very onerous. And they look for a lot of match. And this particular grant program is geared towards waterfowl, and they rate salt marsh as being one of the habitats in particular that is a priority for protection for them. And so we're trying to put together as much salt marsh as we can as match. The impetus of the NACA grant application is to fix the bridge over a salt marsh creek to Kent's Island in Newbury. That's in the William Forward Wildlife Management Area. And so that's part of that bridge, that existing bridge has fallen into the creek and has created an obstruction, so the salt marsh behind it can't get the flowage, saltwater flowage that it should.
Do you own Kent's Island?
Yes, Fish and Wildlife does,
My understanding from past matters, that when Division of Fisheries and Wildlife has come to my attention is that you folks permit hunting on your land, is that correct?
yeah. We do.
So you'd be shooting these waterfowl that you proposing to protect.
Yeah.
I have no objection. I just wanted.
I know it does seem a little odd. But most of the waterfowl land that has been protected in the past was protected through hunting licenses and, you know, from fees that were.
$dollars of hunting licenses have purchased acres and acres of prime habitat for protection.
Is that the same
So
thing as the
it's-
stamp
there's
program?
protection.
So
Yes,
they
yeah.
can go and kill them.
Yep,
Make any sense at all.
it's just, well, it's,
And they do
it's a
regulate,
wildlife
they,
resource.
they do regulate strictly the numbers, et cetera, so
Right.
that they make sure that that they're not harvesting more than they should.
Who issues these licenses? Does your division or does the town or both or just?
The state.
The state, being the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife? So how many, roughly, do you have a sense of how many licenses you grant people to, in Raleigh, Newbury area?
I don't, unfortunately.
I'm just curious, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I really don't. I think that they can develop that kind of documentation for deer hunting licenses. I think they're, because they've changed their format now, most of the hunting licenses are done over the computer. And so they're trying to get more information as to where hunters are from and where do they go to hunt and that sort of information. But I think that the federal government garners, they gather information on waterfowl hunting. So if you shoot waterfowl, you have to actually report how many ducks that you harvest in a season.
Report to whom?
To the feds, federal government.
Where would I go if I shot a waterfowl to report that?
You call. I think you used to call, maybe now you do it on the computer.
Who do I call?
There's a number, I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head. I could find out and get that
No,
information for you.
I just don't.
I'm just the land agent.
Understand the process here, so if
I think it's on the,
if I
it's
throw a
on the
rock and
license.
down a mallet, why?
Yeah, I think it's on the, yeah, I think you're right, I think it's on the
It probably
license.
is, it's probably on the license.
Golf ball takes one. Let's see.
So if I'm looking at the plan, the green area is all
Owned by-
owned by Fish and Game, correct? And,
Yeah.
and this parcel, this big parcel, basically,
Just wanna make sure.
except for this
it's-
non-profit piece here.
That's Greenbelt.
So you're basically just trying to get some continuity.
Exactly.
Okay, and that makes your grant application a little bit easier to construct.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's Greenbelt, Fran?
This is, yeah,
Essex
this is
County
Essex
Greenbelt.
County.
Oh, that little
Land-
spot.
Land trust, yeah, that little.
And I'm actually,
That's the one we were last year, right?
I think they've owned
As
that.
far as I know,
for-
we've never,
No. Done anything with that?
never done anything with them on that parcel.
Yes.
I was looking at this parcel,
I think it
but
was in that general
Oh.
area, but not
the
this one.
impediment to the town was, you know, through the interest of the Conservation Commission, seeking to have this designated as open spaces, that we don't have a survey plan to provide a description of the parcel. It was taken by a tax title taking, so there's no documentation, there's no reference to any deeded plan or anything else like that that gives the Mets and Bounds description of this parcel. Not that there would actually be a lot of Mets and Bounds for this parcel, since most of it is defined by, I believe that's the Mill River. That's the Mill River making its way to join the Parker River out in the salt marsh. But there still should, you know, if it had been properly documented, there would be at least that boundary that's reflected by the red line on the terrestrial side there that
Are the
I-
surrounding parcels defined, or do we know? that-
Well, since they're owned by the state, I didn't bother to do any research to try and find any deeds for that, since I was solely interested in whether there was an opportunity for us to seek a town meeting article to have it designated as being under our custody and care. But again, other priorities came into play once I found out that it just went back to a tax title taking with no heritage or anything like that. This is actually a great opportunity to achieve protection and management of this parcel all in one fell swoop in an entity that isn't necessarily constrained by having to have a surveyed plan of the particular parcel.
I think it would be a lot different, quite frankly, if this was a very developable parcel that was surrounded by, existing house lots. Then it would be a lot harder to do without a plan.
Yes.
But since we own all around it, it makes it so much simpler.
Are you seeking to acquire the piece that Greenbelt has, or you just?
Yes. Yeah.
So
And
at the
we've-
same
they've
time.
been very helpful on this NACA grant application.
That's
So
good.
I work with them on a regular basis on a number of projects. And,
Where is the bridge that you were saying has collapsed?
oh, that's on Pence Island, which
Roughly.
I think might not be on this map, is it?
Yeah, it's very close to that.
I think it might be up here or something,
Yeah.
right? It might be just off the,
It's,
it's hard for me to orient
to
without
my
seeing the-
recollection, it's kind of in there,
Yeah, right up
but I'm
in
not
here.
sure where the road is.
I think this might be part of trustees reservations,
That's the railroad.
Old Town Hill.
Yeah, that's Old Town Hill, that's the
And there's
railroad.
another section of Old Town Hill.
Yeah.
And I suspect it's right there.
It's at the corner of Hay Street.
Okay.
Right, but it's where Hay Street does a
Bends.
real
Does that
sharp
bend,
bend.
yes,
and I
exactly.
think that's that point right there.
And there's a clamshell road that goes right by Mr. Colby's house.
Oh, I've been there.
That's the place.
I met Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
with
it.
his incredible little boat that was out on the road too for a
Just
while.
drove by the
Oh,
day,
well, that's-
by the other day. Okay, here's a tough question. How do you go about reaching a money provision with regard to buying this property on a piece like this?
Yeah. Typically, salt marsh is considered unbuildable. You really can't develop it. And so I would be offering the town backland prices or unbuildable prices. So I'd have to do some further research to see what that exact number is right now. But I'm envisioning in the range of 1,500 to 2,000 an acre. So if it's 24 acres, I believe,
Yes.
that could be as much as 48,000, or slightly less, depending on.
I would think the town would be very agreeable.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting some money for this.
And I'm, as I said, this is part of the NACA application, and so that kind of allows us to spend that much money on salt marsh. If it turned out that we were not successful in getting this grant application, we submitted and for some reason it's not funded, we'd still be interested in acquiring the property. I'd have to go back to my lands committee and figure out how much they would be willing to spend on it, because I'm not sure if they'd, quite frankly, be willing to spend 48,000 on completely unbuildable land surrounded by us, if we weren't getting some match from the federal government.
It's accessible by water on
Mhm.
3 sides.
Yep. That's true.
For hunters and recreational people.
Mhm.
Okay, you've been very helpful.
Well,
Heard your
I
questions
really
and
appreciate
appreciate your
that.
patience in answering them. How do the commission members feel about recommending to the selectmen that this proceed in this manner?
I think, I recommend it.
It's probably unanimous.
Well, Brent, any further comments? Well, then I guess I appreciate a vote along those lines. support the acquisition, subject to an agreeable purchase price for the town. Recommendation is selectmen to that effect. Do I hear a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the support. This NACA grant is the worst grant application I've ever seen. So I don't know that we have a snowball's chance because we're competing with the prairie potholes. I think this one's yours, so
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
actually,
steal
both
it,
of
sorry.
Yep, that's a prairie pot.
But I wanted to give you guys a copy of the Mass Wildlife that deals with amphibians. I don't know if you probably already have a copy, but.
Well, I got one at home, don't get one in the office? Can I keep this in the
Oh,
office?
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Brent was so helpful putting me on the agenda so quickly. I have a dozen eggs from the farm for you. If you eat eggs, if not, you can give them to whoever you want. So thank you
Sure,
very
Brett
much
can find
for
a
your,
good use for them.
appreciate the time.
If it's edible, we can
If-
take it.
if
Value
you don't-
doesn't exceed $50, correct?
Yes, no, that's less than $50. If you don't mind, I'll stay and listen to Mass Audubon's.
It's a public meeting, you can stay as long as you want. We
Okay.
appreciate you
Thank you.
being receptive to that. Where do you live in?
I live in Tingsboro.
Kingsborough?
Yeah, so it's about an hour,
Bit of
but
a-
my brother lives on Central Street,
Ah.
and, we haven't had hot water for
Oh.
3 weeks at my house, so I get to take a shower tonight.
Wow.
So, Mr. Chair, this would be the 8:45 proposed project changes. You wish to read the agenda item?
8:45, agenda item is the proposed project changes or change with regard to a new observation platform, 14 feet by 18 feet at 45 Patmos Road, Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary, Mass Audubon Society, DEP number 63-618. Here to introduce this a little more descriptively, Brent?
Yeah.
Sorry, your name is?
I'm Bill Getty.
Yeah, this is Bill Getty, the director of the Joppa Flats.
And
And
Meadows Wildlife
Meadows.
Center.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let me read the email I prepared to brief initially Doug and Kurt on this. And jump in if I have misstated anything here, Bill.
Thank you.
Correct me, whatever. So, Mass Audubon Society requests consideration by the commission as to whether this additional or new construction of an observation platform, parentheses, or deck, within the Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary can be considered to be under the existing issued order of conditions or a new order of conditions, parentheses, or amended order is required. So I guess I did get a clarification to bring this before the commission, so I don't need to read that. Full disclosure, that my wife is employed by Massachusetts Audubon Society. She works at a different sanctuary than Mr. Getty represents this evening. I also derive absolutely no financial benefit to my household, based on this proposal that is before the commission, and will attest as such if needed. Okay, so that takes care of that. So I declare, and hopefully the commission agrees, I have no conflict of interest or interest in this application proposal.
Anybody disagree with that? Okay, proceed.
The issued order already includes conditions relating to the proposed construction of a platform to be located off the managed meadow adjacent to the parking area. This is at Rough Meadows. That platform was proposed to be located at a freshwater wetland resource area bordering vegetated wetlands and intermittent stream with an inundated area or ponded area. End of parentheses. The proposed platform, slightly larger in size, is proposed to be located adjacent to Far Division Road, as is noted on photographs and the pictometry here before the commission. outside of any normal tidal influence, offset from the salt marsh by 15 feet, it appears that the following regulated areas are potentially impacted. ACEC, or Area of Critical Environmental Concern, which is established by sea level elevation 10 feet above sea level. Land subject to coastal storm flowage or the coastal flood zone. And the 100-foot buffer zone to salt marsh. It does not appear that there are bordering vegetated wetlands adjacent to the salt marsh at this location. And that's, just for the commission's edification, that can be a common phenomenon based on groundwater flowing off the land, can actually influence and provide freshwater nourishment to a wetlands plant community right at the edge of the site of the salt marsh, outside of the saltwater tidal influence. So just to let you know that there is that association sometimes, which is why I mentioned that it wasn't here at this location. The only potential detriment is that the gapping of the deck boards, approximately 3/8 of an inch or more after shrinkage, may subject the grass underneath to shading. The proposal is configured to avoid any trees being cut and is proposed for an area that naturally lacks shrub and sapling growth. So I continue on. My in-house assessment is that the proposed activity fits within the original scope of work conditioned by the original order. The Commission's consideration needs to be directed to the fact that the new aspect is the proposed construction activity within the buffer zone to salt marsh, and the platform will definitely be within land subject to coastal storm flowage, especially in light of the preliminary changes to the FEMA coastal flood mapping. DEP policy 85-4, amending order conditions, mentions that a minor project change which does not negatively affect the interest of the act would require amending the issued order. If different interests of the act are impacted, then a new notice of intent should be filed. So my summary is as follows. Number one, the proposed activity is already governed by the issued order, already conditioned, and not impacting new resource areas under the Wetlands Protection Act. This doesn't include buffer zones. Number two, minor project change that requires amending the issued order but is within project scope. And number three, project change that potentially impacts the interests of the act and or a different resource area needs a new NOI filing. So that's the three different options under consideration.
What was the second one again, please?
The second one is that it's a minor project change that requires amending the issued order, but is within the project scope. That was the order that was issued for the creation of the Rough Meadows Sanctuary, which include trail cutting, vista pruning. All of those activities were occurring in the same resource areas that we have under discussion here. The patching of the culverted crossing of the tidal ditch in the salt marsh, that actually was below the tidal range, and so actually in ocean waters, so to speak. So the original issued order, it just didn't have this platform being constructed in coastal resources. But the original order did have activities that were occurring in these coastal resource areas, the same ones we're talking about.
Commissioner observations? Sam? Anybody else?
Now, amending, an amendment to an order of conditions does require a filing. Basically, it's kind of abbreviated, really. We usually request the first 1 or 2 pages of a notice of intent application just to make sure that there hasn't been any address or contact information changed. We do require notification of the abutters because of this sanctuary being dispersed and composed of multiple parcels, the normal consideration is to look at this particular discrete parcel where the activity is occurring and see if there's any other ownership within 100 feet of the parcel boundary to that particular parcel, and to require notification of those owners or owner, and advertisement, and then a hearing before the commission, which would allow, we've already been submitted relatively detailed plans, and plus the location of the proposed activity, so that would be potentially just incorporated by the issuance of an amended order, which would roll in any special conditions which weren't already in the original order that are appropriate for this construction activity.
Can I see the language for the three options you've got there, please? Mine at home inadvertently.
I'm sorry, I should have.
Can I
made
see
copies.
the deck from,
Sure. Couple of different bench details, because it is meant to be a platform where people can sit and observe as they're being educated about qualities of the salt marsh, flora and fauna.
So if I can interpret these three options as the proposed activity, first one is the proposed activity is already governed by the issued order, already conditioned, and then not impacting new resources area under the WPA. This doesn't include the buffer zone. Second one is a minor project change, which I think you were just discussing, that requires amending the issued order along with the other things that you mentioned go along with that.
Yep.
And the third is that the change potentially impacts interests of the act and or different resource areas needing a new NOA file. Could I get a sense of the commission, how many of you feel that a new NOI filing is necessary? None. So that leaves us for the first two. First is that we can, I assume we can deal with this tonight in terms of looking at these things and whether or not there's any significant or even reasonable impacts that may require amending the issued order. May I see hands or voices if you feel that amending the issued order is in order or appropriate, pending further discussion? Which leaves us with hearing none or saying none. Leaves us with the first one, that it's already governed by the issued order, already conditioned and not impacting new resource areas. Which seems to be the consensus of the commission members that that's the way we should go. Pending further discussion, we may want to revisit that, but anyway, questions, comments on this by anybody?
How high is the platform off the ground?
The intention is to make this handicap accessible, because we're going to be taking school children down. The idea is too far for someone in a wheelchair, something to go by in a wheelchair, so we want to drive them out. Then when we get there, we want to just be able to have them come up on the ramp. So at the edge that's against the road, against the, well, we call it Professor Chandler's Long Walk, it's Far Division Road. It's going to be just barely, we're just going to put a ramp, so it's going to be very close to the surface. And then my best estimate from all the way, the highest part is going to go off the ground. It's about 18 inches in the northeast corner. It's a very gentle slope over that. Yes, sir.
So 18 inches or lower, then you don't need a ramp? Is that the guy?
The idea is that we want to have the seating on three sides to contain, the idea, this is for educational programs, that doing orientations or safety orientations, we break the groups into two teams. One will be exploring the salt marsh, the other the maritime forest. So we want them to contain, and we only want on one side to have a small ramp. the idea is to, because we don't want kids falling off the backside, and we want them to pay attention.
Right, so the seating is effectively. the
Seating
railing.
accomplishes
Seating,
the railing.
Yes,
Right.
seating and the yes, sir, that's correct.
Right.
Seating, the back of the seating is the railing.
Right.
Okay. And we are, in my notes that I wrote here, I said that we may, as we're doing construction, adjust that ramp just a little bit so that we're not tearing up roots and things of that nature. So we may, it may be here or it may be there or something, but it's going to be, I limited the amount to 36 square feet is all we would need for and again, the purpose there is to make anybody that has mobility issues to be able to get up on the ramp very, very easily.
This is Fire Division Road, this,
Yes, sir, the road that comes, the maps.
between the two parallel red lines.
Yeah, the maps are always strange, because in some cases, Fire Division Road starts back at the intersection with, well, even before, back with, what is the road that?
Stackyard.
Stackyard Road.
Stackyard, yeah.
But in any case, yes, this is the outline of the road, and what we want this platform is to come, there are trees, we purposely are making the size of this platform to fit in among the trees. There's one branch of an oak that's right above where we were, it's 4 inches in diameter. We have to take that. We've already taken a birch tree that was here, and by rearranging the branches, we're able to push it out of the way without disturbing the tree in any way. We're gonna have to trim a little bit off that. Other than that, we're not going to be taking any bushes at all. Very minimal disturbance in the area.
How are you, I assume this is where you're putting it?
Yes, sir.
How are you accessing that? You were doing this, or you going out around this way?
No, we would come down here on the road, the
Mhm.
existing
Yep.
cart path road, Fire Division Road, and we will be accessing the little spot right here. There's no need to come in,
Good.
any construction or anything like, we don't have to go there.
That was really my only concern, because then you're trampling out in the
Yes, sir, there's absolutely no.
BBW area, and
The only thing that we have is a vehicle a white truck to carry the, like a Ford F-150 or whatever that type of truck is, I don't know them all. So just in order to get the lumber out
Material
there,
out.
the materials out there. And other than that, it's, all the approach has to be is from this area or just to get around on the site. There's absolutely no reason to go out into the salt marsh to approach the construction site. Again, from my best estimate is, right up here is like tide rack, and then we're at least 15 feet away from that.
And the footings are just gonna be laid down on the ground?
The footings, we're gonna put concrete columns.
There are-
Pre going into the
so
ground.
there's-
Yeah.
There are some different activities and some different concerns with this platform in that location as opposed to what we originally dealt with
Yeah.
in the meadow freshwater wetlands area.
Brent's memorandum says that his in-house assessment is that the proposed activity fits within the original scope of work conditioned by the original order. And I think that was the sense of the commission when we were looking at the three options. And Brent goes on to say the commission's consideration needs to be directed to the fact that the new aspect is a proposed construction activity within the buffer zone of the salt marsh, and the platform will definitely be within land subject to coastal storm flowage, especially in light of the preliminary changes to the FEMA coastal map flooding. I don't get any sense that we see any damage to any of the interests at issue here, and that we can express our appreciation for the presentation and call it a day on that.
Well, there's two conditions that actually are not contained in the original order that would be appropriate for this particular installation. The first one is the gapping of the boards to try and preserve the vegetative covering underneath. And the second relates to the fact that it is going to be in an area subject to coastal storm flowage, and that would be requiring that it be securely anchored so that it would resist it being transported and torn off of its foundation or pillars during the nor'easter or when it's subjected to the coastal storm flowage. Those conditions are not contained in the original order, but would be very appropriate. Again, because the original construction activity wasn't anticipated to be in this different, location.
The material.
Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't intending to construct it that way anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if we were scrutinized in regards to this, the order that we issued didn't anticipate this eventuality.
Right.
It did govern this same activity, though. So there is that difference.
Well, you're right on that last point. I do remember that consideration of this whole project that was mentioned, that observation platforms or posts would be proposed at future times with regard to this area. So I think that is contemplated. Could you elaborate a little bit on how you would anchor this?
Well, the idea in design is that we are proposing that we will sink holes and put concrete posts in the ground to secure. We have absolutely no interest in having this float away. I mean, it's the whole point of being there is to have a permanent. So the idea, and it's this is Jonathan Wigman's drawings contemplates, and maybe there's another drawing that goes along with it that contemplates
Just the framing.
the framing with the notation of these concrete posts.
Sonotubes?
Yes, go into the ground, and that we were thinking that would because we were a little distance away from the area, and with those tubes would secure it to the. I mean, if it was just set on the ground, I would have no guarantee that it would stay, but I'm thinking with these tubes in the ground, that it would be quite secure.
What's the overall square foot?
Actually, I'm gonna interject here, since I used to sell these things. What Bill doesn't understand, doesn't realize, which possibly his contractor does, is that they need to use hurricane anchors on this to tie the decking platform. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the key, is to
We-
connect the sonotubes to
Yeah.
the decking, that the connection is the key.
Yeah, we did mention here about, I mean, we do understand we're going to talk about how the hardware that we're going to be using, because we're talking about galvanized and also stainless steel, and the intent is to make sure this doesn't go away. So
Is that the same as hurricane anchors, Brent?
Well, hurricane anchors are special fastener that are designed to, because most structural framing here in the Northeast is built based on the assumption that the weight of the structure keeps everything, and you just toenail down into your stringers and cross support or whatever. Hurricane anchors were developed in recognition of the factor that with tornadoes or hurricanes, the structures are actually subjected to forces of uplift that totally negate the weight of the structure and its minuscule.
Buoyancy.
And the fact that nails usually have no resistance to being pulled straight out. So they
So do you have
usually
some kind of a fastener or
Yeah.
carriage bolt or something through the joist?
Well,
the joist?
what it is they're either stainless steel or galvanized like plates that come up and make a 90-degree turn, so they go from the stringers to the cross pieces, and then they're in 3 individual nails which are perpendicular to then the forces trying to pull and lift the decking off the stringers.
So horizontal
Yeah.
is the way to secure it?
Depending on what they are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or, yeah.
Oh.
In this particular instance, I believe those are the fasteners that would be
Like
appropriate.
joist hangers only in reverse.
Are you agreeable to incorporating those into
Oh,
this?
absolutely. I mean,
design?
the intent is that I'm not a drawer, but the idea is that these metal fasteners are secured in the concrete, and then that's attached to the wood, yeah.
Right, but then
Absolutely.
see, the problem is that then this needs to be anchored to
Of
the
course.
post again, because normally you would just build it inside, side nail it in without the recognition that it would be subjected to forces lifting it up, because the normal thing is that you load the structure, and by the weight of the structure, it just sits there.
I think it's absolutely reasonable, and again, we don't have a lot of money to spend on things that we are gonna wash away on us. So we have a.
What's the
that we-
overall square footage of this?
It's 14 by 18.
You said 324.
And you're
That's
off,
14.
But you may have shrunk it a little bit.
Well, we had to get in between those trees.
you're off in the wooded area a little bit.
Yeah, we're purposely underneath the trees.
It's not clear to me that the size of the spacing is something we need to worry about in terms of salt marsh.
Well, no, you're not worrying about it in terms of salt marsh, you're worrying about the fact that it's the buffer zone and it has dense herbaceous plant community there right now, and you want that to stay in place so that it will hold the soil.
Which is
So
holding
the
the
fact that
structure.
they're up and gapping the boards will lend some, work in that direction. This is different from our research folks with their towers sitting right in the salt marsh, where we had more of an issue with them having a flat platform that was intercepting light to the
So
salt
are
marsh.
you proposing
This
a
is-
wider gapping or the same gapping or a smaller gapping?
No, I'm just mentioning it as a fact. They're already proposing gapping, and they're recognizing that the fresh cut dimension lumber that they use is gonna shrink a little bit. I'm just putting the facts out there for you.
Thank
What
you,
is
Brett.
Dave, that was your question about the
Yeah,
material.
what is the lumber that you're gonna be?
We're gonna be using pressure treated lumber.
It's gonna be pressure treated.
It'll probably be the ACQ, since
Yeah.
that's what's readily available right now.
So what we had talked about, and I talked to the person who we're intending to use to build this, and his concern was if we made up the gap more than a quarter inch to start, then it's gonna gap even more. And while I'm not sure that we're gonna very many people in high heel shoes down there, because it's inappropriate, but it's
I've
just.
walked it, yeah.
It's just one of those things that, but we'll comply with whatever you say is appropriate. I'm just worried that it gets too wide a gap, then there's an issue, a safety issue.
Well, in your decking boards were the 4-inch are actually
Mhm.
3 1/8
Yeah.
or 3 1/4, right? So that's probably the best you can achieve. I mean, it should allow the flexibility to hang on there.
Everybody comfortable with that? I'd just like to comment on, what Brent said about butters, if we went a different route. And, I think that the butters have had lots of notification with regard to the project as a whole. It's a large area, and that this is just a very small,
I think there's only 2 abutters that would be notified.
change within the enormous area that, is under consideration here, and it would not impact the abutters in any meaningful way, so I would see no need to go that route.
One of them will be Greenville.
They're our friends. Very good friends.
So I'm speaking for myself, I'm comfortable with the project as it stands and has been discussed, and we'll change on the hurricane anchorage, and just go on from there without a need to do option 2 or option 3 here. Does anybody feel differently?
Well, what I do is I recommend that the chair seek a motion declaring this a minor project change that is governed by the issued order of conditions, and that no amending process is required.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous?
Very much appreciate your support. I hope some of you had a chance to walk at Rough Meadows, because we have a lot of people walking there. It's really, really nice, so.
Walked it earlier
Yeah.
when, it was first.
Right.
I see it's, a lot of folks are seeking it out and walking their families, and it's
That's
really
good.
great for us. And this will add a nice educational dimension that will, goes out there.
Okay.
Brett, thank you again for all your support. I really much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Good day.
Yeah, why don't we go back to the 8 o'clock report? Mr. Chairman, if you wish to read that, that is the applicant's representative requesting.
Applicant's representative being John DeCoulis, engineer. Dear Mr. Bazak, please cancel our appointment for your August 20th, 2013 meeting and continue the proposed Marion Way project to your next meeting. Want to vote and then discuss, or do you?
Yeah, if you could, just, yeah, vote for
Okay.
continuance.
Do I have a motion to that effect? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Was that continued to the next meeting?
Yes, September 10th, I believe. So what was distributed to you tonight is the full plan set based on the revisions, and once I called him up to remind him and find out whether his plotter ever got fixed. They just came in a few days ago, which is why I advised him to consider granting us a continuance. I think it was last Wednesday, brought in the plan sets, or whatever date I got them stamped
August
on.
14th.
August 14th, and he also provided me with 2 packages of the stormwater calculations and HydroCAD drawings, drainage analysis and stuff for me to send. I sent one to Cameron Engineering, and I sent the other to Horsley and Witten. I don't know if the commission is familiar with them or not. I'm familiar with them. Doing work for the Haverhill Conservation Commission, the same type of thing, peer review of stormwater, submitted stormwater facilities and analysis under the Wetlands Protection Act. And also they've conducted a great number of the seminar workshops I've gone to for compliance under EPA for the Phase 2 stormwater.
They being both firms? Camet?
Horsley and Witten.
Oh, you're just talking about
Horsley and Witten. Just because I don't think the commission here is.
Well,
has
I
ever
know who they are.
You know who they are, but I don't think the commission has ever seen them representing an applicant or doing any work for the commission or whatever. So I just wanted to let you know why I chose to send an inquiry out to them, and I've received acknowledgements from both firms, and they both asked me who else I'd sent the packets to, so I didn't see any reason not to tell them, so I both gave them each other's names to let them know. It was competition.
Gives them an idea.
Is there a third firm in the area that does this sort of stuff?
There possibly is. I previously discussed this with the commission though, and folks indicated you'd be comfortable with 2. I actually thought they were 2 that would also possibly respond, because, yeah, I could have picked some other ones, but I don't know that we've gotten anything back from them. But, you know, I have no idea what the price is going to be. I mean, it may turn out that this is a high number for this, and that I may need to have to send it out to a third firm. I don't anticipate that, but.
It's good to get a second one in any event.
So anyway, that was all. I just wanted to update you in regards to that.
Okay, so we have these for our review for the next meeting. Okay.
Yeah, and now the other thing is just to touch base, earlier, it was kind of left fluid as to whether, once I got a response from the 2 firms, whether you folks wanted to see that, make the decision about who to choose at the meeting, or whether you were comfortable with me just contacting Doug and Kurt and making a decision based on whether they gave us totally different prices or levels or whatever.
That's fine, that's fine with me.
Anybody want to see it?
Okay.
And if there is any significant
Difference.
things to consider that, you know, we
Yeah.
should bring it before the commission, so that we will do it.
Well, I'll bring it to Doug and Kurt's attention, and then obviously seek their advice and guidance as to whether to bring it to the next meeting or not.
Anything else on that 8 o'clock agenda item?
No. No, I don't believe so.
Brings us to a 9 o'clock item. Broad Street Farm open space, consideration of obtaining a conservation restriction with Mass Audubon Society.
Yes. I wanted to seek guidance and advice from the commission. We, if the commissioners will remember, the commission had received a communication from Susan Moses, bringing to light the need for the town to have a CR on the Brad Street Farm open space parcel to meet requirements imposed by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, I believe, CR, as well as then also to assure compliance with state grant requirements for seeking funds for future open space acquisition. Particularly, I think her communication was raising the aspect of the possibility of the Girl Scout property becoming available, or portions of it that possibly would need grant application to seek state funds for preservation and protection. So in that regards, I think I had mentioned, and it may have only been to Doug and Kurt, I mentioned that I wanted to initiate an inquiry to Massachusetts Audubon Society in regards to, I know that they have in their land protection department, have the section that deals exclusively with monitoring and maintenance and holding conservation restrictions for municipalities, as well as sometimes other land trust organizations. And so I have copied you, I believe, on a communication that I received from Bob Ford, where he made initial inquiries of their land protection division and came back with a needed amount of funding that would be an endowment to support their holding of a perpetual conservation restriction and doing the monitoring. And also, he shared the fact that would be capable of being applied for under the Community Preservation Act for that funding, and that he would assist in doing her work with us in regards to that application. So I wanted to seek kind of I definitely wanted to seek the feelings of the commission as to whether you wish to proceed with the work on putting together an application for CPA funding, and if you are comfortable with Massachusetts Audubon Society as being an organization that we would wish to have the CR held with. We've had experience working with both Massachusetts Audubon Society and with Essex County Greenbelt. Besides my long-term association as a volunteer to Massachusetts Audubon Society, I have worked with their land protection department, both when I first started employment here in Raleigh. They were hired by the state to produce baseline reports
They also did not seem to have the same problem that an earlier person before us in regards to the fact of knowing what the requirements are for putting together a comprehensive baseline report, including all the certifications and affidavits and et cetera. And so I know, and also because they obviously had to be qualified to do that, otherwise the state would not have contracted with them to produce a number of baseline reports. They did the Pingree Farm parcel that's adjacent to the water department property, because that was acquired with a significant amount of state funding. Had a restriction imposed by the state as a requirement of the funding, but they hadn't produced a baseline report because at the time that was done, they hadn't developed the expertise and documented the need to provide this type of documentation, so you knew what the status and what the condition of the parcel was in order to protect it going on into the future. My other reason for possibly suggesting Massachusetts Audubon Society to be chosen is the fact that they have a depth of personnel involved in their land protection department, which I don't believe Essex County Greenbelt has the same number of staff people or the same type of breadth of experience and academic credentials involved in their efforts, just because they're a smaller organization. Haverhill has contracted with Massachusetts Audubon to do habitat and wildlife assessments on a number of parcels in the city of Haverhill, which they've been developing forest management plans for, because properties have never been managed and they have reached various states of overmaturity of forests and large problem with invasives, large problem with even aged mature trees all dying and being wind thrown at the same time. And as my wife and I's contribution to them was, we told them, before you start cutting things, you better figure out whether there's stuff living in there, so we'd like you to do a wildlife habitat assessment before you start working too far down the road on your forest management plans to make sure you aren't intruding into places that need some standing deadwood and stuff like that. So they have done some work for the City of Haverhill, the Conservation Commission there too, which I was impressed with.
All of this has nothing to do with the Girl Scout property, is that correct?
That's correct, but has everything to do with the Bradstreet Farm open space parcel, which could, its level of protection would be increased by having conservation restriction put in place. And again, also that would put us in compliance with DCR's requirements, which could impact our ability to possibly apply for funding for additional open space acquisition, which could include the possibility of the Girl Scout parcel.
The reason I mentioned the Girl Scout parcel is because I'm a butter and will have to recuse myself from many deliberations with regard to there too, and that puts me in the same position with regard to the funding committee, the Community Preservation Area Committee. And there are two of us on that committee, myself and Cliff Pierce, who are butters, so it's unfortunate such is the situation. Yes.
I just had a quick question. You said DCR required the CR. Do you mean DCS? Division of Conservation Services?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Some state department.
All right, and so Bradstreet, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Bradstreet Farm. How many acres?
It's 106
And
that
what's-
are designated under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. There actually was greater acreage than that. Some of it was a portion for active recreational use, another portion containing the private
Buildings.
farm and barn was under historical restriction and was sold to private ownership. And the other parcel was carved out for the possibility of future affordable housing units being constructed on it. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what the total acreage was, but I would suppose
Give or take
it was
30
130, maybe.
I don't think it was that high.
Maybe
So
it was
how
that
how much does,
120.
Mass Audubon charge for that? And is it related per acre, or?
I don't know, haven't gotten the depths. They quoted us a figure of $17,500 for, they say, this is based on our stewardship staff costs, expenses relating to our responsibility to annually monitor the CR in perpetuity as further detailed below. They would create a comprehensive CR baseline report, which we talked about a lot tonight, a copy provided to the town. They would establish an endowment fund covering the annual CR monitoring costs in perpetuity of Mass Audubon stewardship staff and in consultation with the town. And number 3, funding the future defense of CR violations, if any, in consultation with you. That would be the purpose of the 17.
And does Essex County Greenbelt typically ask for money for CRs? And is
They
it
do.
comparable?
I don't know, I haven't asked them for a
Oh.
direct.
Well, I find this interesting. I thought this had all been handled. Because I remember discussion, and I can't tell you how long ago, but it wasn't terribly recent. I remember discussion about how much the state, because we originally talked to the state doing this,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It seems to me they wanted somewhere around 50,000.
Well,
Some
they-
large number.
The state was going to contribute $50,000. They didn't want 50,000. They were going to contribute $50,000 to the town for the acquisition purchase of the Brad Street Farm parcel. I know this directly because I was involved with town council in the negotiations with the legal staff of DCR, which finally broke down, and the selectmen advised us to cease negotiating with DCR.
That might be tied in to that whole aspect, because I know it came, my recollection is this came up at different times. But then we went to Greenbelt,
Did somebody
and I can't tell you where I've heard this, because I don't remember. But I remember discussion about dealing with the state about doing it, and then about dealing with Greenbelt doing it. And it still hasn't been done. And I'm sure dates back 5 years or more. It hasn't been done. And now we're talking with Audubon. Quite frankly, my recollection is price goes down as we've gone on, not that it goes up, which is rather strange. Because all this stuff used to be done almost for free. But it wasn't as extensive. Anyway, for whatever that's worth.
Being on the Community Preservation Committee, I may be wrong, but my recollection was that Greenbelt jointly with the town was going to hold a conservation restriction, and Greenbelt would do the monitoring, and nothing was said about a price. So how Audubon jumps into the middle of this, it's not clear to me. But there should be a conservation restriction.
That, are
No.
you sure that wasn't in regards to Rough Meadows? That's who we,
Brad Street
that's
is what
who
I'm
we,
talking about.
yeah.
We're talking.
Are we talking about Rough Meadows?
No,
we're talking
I'm
about
just
Brad
saying,
Street.
Brad Street.
what you just stated about a cooperative agreement between the town and Greenbelt that didn't require any monies is
Rough
valid
Meadows.
in regards to the Rough Meadows, but I never heard
You may be right.
that statement made about Brad Street property.
You may be right, but I don't remember there ever being a proposal to, for someone to, need money in perpetuity to deal with conservation restriction. And I don't know that it's necessary, but, I mean, I do think we need a conservation
Yeah.
restriction.
I got into that whole question out in New York State, talking about setting up a conservation restriction on a piece of property. And the land trust I was talking to said that they would be committed to do an inspection every year, which sounds, in essence, like what the ongoing inspection aspect of this would be.
Walk around.
Yeah.
The town of New, excuse me, go ahead.
No, and I was just gonna say, what you just mentioned about Greenbelt, but I wasn't quite correct in what I was talking about. What you were talking about was more correct.
The town of West Newbury has a legal requirement to perambulate the bounds of the town annually.
Oh, we do too.
Yeah, we do too.
Road?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who does it?
we have been
So,
every town.
What,
Selectmen.
one or more selectmen choose a particular boundary marker or a number of boundary markers that are on the municipal boundary and do the perambulation.
Good for them. Lovely word. We don't get a chance to use it very often. There is with regard to the historic portion that was sold to a private interest, there is a historic preservation restriction that is under the jurisdiction of the Historical Society, or you can tell me better, one of those two.
Mass Historical Society?
No,
That.
local.
Then it would have to be historic district.
Historic
Yeah,
commission?
Or historic
Yeah,
commission.
right, so there is
It's not the society.
and it's in place.
Yeah.
But I agree, we would need a conservation restriction on the Brad Street portion. That is the open space. Because part of that property is set aside for recreation purposes as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's a separate parcel.
Yeah.
And that part of the open space was acquired with a self-help grant, or?
It was done.
It was done all with CPA.
done
So all of this
Wholly
all
with CPA money.
Funded by the town.
$3 million
Oh, okay.
bonded.
So it's the CPA that required the CR?
No,
No.
no, the state
Well,
imposed that.
But
well, that's
as
part of the
CPA
CPA
requirement.
process.
Right.
Right.
The restrictions are required by the CPA process, state law.
I was just interested because sometimes Fish and Wildlife requires CRs, and we don't require money. And so I was
Really?
wondering what the going rate is, what other entities, charge for baseline documentation reports, et cetera. So I was just interested in
Do you
that aspect.
continue the ongoing, you do the ongoing inspections?
Yeah. But I have to say, once you've done the baseline documentation report, it's not so difficult to
Oh,
go
there's
and
not
make
much
sure
to
that
it,
it's-
I know.
Yeah, you just,
Yeah.
cause you have all that documentation, so you just pull out that same form and go
Yeah.
out. Typically, it's addressing the same issues that weren't addressed when you bought the place, like Jill Mann mentioned, that there's already some abutters
Yeah, patio,
or
shed,
something or
yeah,
whatever,
whatever,
and
yeah.
so it's, that tends to be the issue. Anyways, thank you for your time, I'll let you continue on.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks again, really
Make
appreciate
comments.
it.
So you're in a position where you need some sort of response to this letter.
Well, I'm asking for permission to, continue, if there's consensus from the commission, to continue and start putting some, hopefully pen to paper, or working on
an application to see if this can be accomplished. I have spoken to Town Administrator Debbie Egan in regards to this too, and received a positive response from her office in regards to this. I just don't want to start working on a project if I'm not, I don't want to just start doing that.
Well, first of all, I think legally, I really do think we have to do this.
Oh, yes,
So
yes,
it's all a question
I
about-
concur in that
It's only
regard.
a question of the timing and how it gets done. The thing that interests me is that now, we actually, Concom now actually holds title.
It's designated in our care and custody and protected under Article 97, yes.
Okay,
So we have accomplished that step.
okay.
So the next step
Because-
is
We have
to-
title to what specifically?
to the 106 acres of the open space portion of the Bradstreet Farm purchase. That's why I'm always bringing the community garden folks in here, because
Right.
they are on acreage that is under our care and custody.
My thought is that that should have been taken care of by the Bradstreet Farm Committee.
Well, all I can tell you is that I was designated to work with town council, and then, like I said, at the direction of the selectmen, when we mostly G. Pickett Town Council advised them of some quite onerous language that the particular person at the state was insisting be in the CR document, that we were told to discontinue our efforts.
I'm sorry, somehow I missed. So this actually process had been started, and the state wanted,
They wanted to insert verbiage in there
So-
that was going to be a distinct, well, what I was being told was interpreted as a distinct liability and disadvantage to the town, and was not the norm for conservation.
yeah.
What part of the state was proposing?
DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation,
How did they get involved in it?
because they were offering $50,000.
Oh,
Wow.
that
Back
was
then.
the $50,000.
That was the $50,000
Yeah, right,
was being
right,
offered
right,
to the town
right.
as a contribution towards the acquisition dollars.
Right. Yes.
So we can just forget about that.
Oh, yeah, that's ancient history now, I mean,
Right.
not that ancient, but 25 years ago or whatever.
Okay, the nitty gritty of what I'm saying is that I don't know, and Kurt, you might, I don't know what the funding status is or was of the Bradstreet Farm Committee. And that my understanding was that my thought was that this actually should have been part of their overall responsibility and should have been handled already. And if that doesn't apply, then yeah, I agree. I feel that we have to do it, and we have to, we're not gonna fund it out of our own budget at this point, because it's bigger than that, at least the expenses, so
So our
we need
budget,
to.
you mean what? Who?
Concom.
Oh, right.
So
No
we
problem.
have to either go to the CPA or else put a line item in a town annual, in an annual meeting.
Both of those are required. Both
Yeah,
of
well,
them.
I mean,
both,
eventually
yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna require the, yeah.
I don't ever remember that, and I wasn't part of it, the Bradstreet Committee, ever had any money. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, I don't
Yeah,
remember there ever being
okay.
any.
Mhm.
And it might have been logical to assume that they should have gone ahead and pursued this, but somebody should, and it seems to me, you know, it's a good opportunity to take the initiative towards moving that along. And, an application to this, to the Community Preservation Committee would probably be appropriate if, in fact, that much money is needed, or any money is needed. And I would anticipate that that group would be responsive to that. You talked with Laura Hamilton and all about this? She's one department manager, and she's also the main.
I know who Laura Hamilton is, but I just don't know.
She's the main liaison between the town and the Community Preservation Act Committee with regard to agenda items and where.
Oh, well.
She maintains all of the records for the CPA.
Right.
All that.
But again, my whole purpose in being here and talking to the commission is to get direction for me to do stuff like that. So no, I haven't done it preemptively. I only made the initial contact with Mass Audubon to get a handle on what this might actually look like in terms of what the financial obligation was. Her conservation restrictions, I believe, as a document, fall under the responsibility of the Conservation Commission. I would have been very surprised if the Bradstreet Farm Committee, no offense against them, I don't believe they had any power or authority to negotiate terms of the conservation restriction.
And I didn't mean it in that manner. What I meant, I would have thought they would have initiated it.
Right. Well, and that could be very true, which was why I was involved with Judy Pickett in
That
the
other
negotiations
situation,
and
yeah,
discussions
that was-
with the specific verbiage of that CR, that
Yeah.
just didn't bear fruit, that's all.
I'm sorry,
Go
when I
ahead.
spoke about the committee having money, my real point was that when the farm buildings was sold, that money either went back to the CPA
It did.
to pay it off. Okay, then, as far as the money goes, I have nothing further to say.
The sale of that property did result in the purchase price, I forget what it was.
Not much.
Oh, it's pretty meaningful, I thought, 250,000 or something.
Oh, was it that much? I thought it was in the hundreds.
No, came back to the
Yeah.
CPA,
Okay.
and the owner of the property has requested funding for roofing the barn, which, I don't know, were you present at the selectmen's meeting where this subject came up? There was a lot of negative, perspectives shared with regard to the CPA funding that. It was not a CPA meeting, but it was a selectmen's meeting. And that, nothing further has transpired on that as far as I know, one way or the other. I think the feeling of a lot of people is that, you know, having spent $3 million for the purchase price in the first place, and the party that bought the historical portion of it, knew about the costs involved in the condition of the property up front, and it ought to be that person's responsibility, as opposed to, you've got a nice barn, it has historical significance, it'd be nice to preserve that vista. So the community as a whole.
You can get money from historical means, not from us, but from, like, there's this historical, I don't know what you call them, I don't know if it has to do with the Fed, or if it's the state or something like that. If you got a historical building.
They don't have much money. There's very little money available for that type of thing.
I guess, reading between the lines, I'd be surprised if the Community Preservation Act Committee would, well, let me amend that. Community Preservation Act Committee voted in favor of funding part of that barn roofing. I was the only dissenting vote on that, and then the Selectmen's Committee held with the selectmen held a meeting to discuss, I guess, whether it would be put on the town report or to go forward with it, and it did not go forward at that point. I'm not sure they actually formally decided anything, and it may have been directed back to the CPA. So that's sort of where things stand on that, which isn't very helpful in general, but there has been some activity along these lines.
Do we need a recommendation to
Right.
work with Mass Audubon on the CPA application? Is that where we're heading?
That's why I'm requesting your consideration.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
I would not commit to funding anything, but to initiate work on it.
Oh, right.
And I would recommend that you talk with Laura Hamilton, because her historical knowledge about the background of this is much better than mine.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a feel for that before you draft a response or phone Mass Audubon on this one. I think we all agree that conservation restriction would be appropriate.
May I have a motion to that effect?
Yes,
So
you may.
moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
We reached the end of our regular agenda.
Nope.
Oh,
Not yet.
I've lost mine. That's amazing
Another agenda.
documents I have here. Thank you. Personnel evaluation process, asterisk, whatever that means.
That means I added it.
Revised agenda.
Just today, revised it so it didn't get posted. But that's just, I've passed out, received, an email from Debbie Egan addressed to Doug and myself, giving an overview of what the current status is in regards to personnel evaluations. Coming up on my anniversary of permanent hire with the town, which I believe is September 28th. So I wanted to just initiate my request for an evaluation of my performance, which the recommendation here are two different options preceding this. This is based apparently on a Supreme Court ruling recently, and also guidance from the Attorney General's office. And so just in preparation for that, I wanted to bring that to the commission's attention and request that we possibly schedule that in the future. The long and the short of it is, between the two options, basically to conduct the evaluation during an open meeting, and the choice of the two options is the actual document that is attached to the memo, the actual personnel evaluation form. If the employee so chooses, they can request that document be kept confidential and put in their personnel file. That can only be accomplished by the ministerial act of filling out the form be done in executive session and not be done during open session. But all the questioning and comments in regards to covering the different points or aspects of the evaluation form itself would be talked about, discussed with me or the employee in open session.
So this is a new procedure than what's happened in the
This
past.
is new, yeah.
So it's.
In the past, the commission had designated the chair and vice chair to meet with me and
Right.
go over
Sure.
and then come back and report in the full meeting
And now it's
to the rest of the
July.
commission and share with them the personnel evaluation form and see if there was consensus in regards to what was put there, at least that's my recollection.
So ultimately, it depends on your preference as to whether you want it to be public or not.
Right, and I would prefer the personnel evaluations to be kept personal.
Okay.
The commission doesn't mind, but, so basically, like I said, it's just filling out that form in the executive session, so that it doesn't become part of the minutes. I guess I'm old-fashioned on that, I guess, it's just.
That's,
I fully
I feel the same way.
support Brent in that regard. I would note, however, that the language of the memorandum from Debbie Egan says that the Conservation Commission can go into the executive session with the following stated purpose, which must be clearly printed on a posted open meeting notice, i.e. executive session for the purpose of complying with or acting under the authority of any general or special law, i.e. the public records law and the general privacy statute in connection with the drafting of the written performance evaluation document. The employee should be invited to stay during the executive session of the agenda. While in executive session, the Conservation Commission cannot share their respective views or deliberate with one another regarding the conservation agent's performance. It's a little strange.
Well, that's supposed to have already been discussed.
All of the discussion and
I see,
deliberation.
okay, that's what I was gonna say.
Including the vote on the performance must have been done in the open session portion of the agenda. In general, the open session discussion on the performance must reflect what is incorporated into the written evaluation document. Executive session is solely for the ministerial purpose of filling in the form as was previously discussed and voted on in open session. I don't see what's very private about all that.
Right,
Yeah,
I find it
there's still an
extremely annoying.
evaluation discussion during an open session.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But the written grading within these categories, and there's 9 of them, rating them from excellent to, I guess, unsatisfactory, e.g., S, F, and U, whatever that means, would be done, I guess, in executive session. Anyway, I don't see that performance evaluations need to be handled that publicly, but.
My perception of what this simply does is it keeps that document out of the public record law.
Yeah.
So that other people can demand
Access.
to see that,
Mhm.
yes. So that it doesn't change anything about how the deliberations are done, it simply keeps it out of the future people's eyes.
So the actual ratings would be handled in executive session. Is that your understanding?
No.
Well, no, that's discussed during open
No.
session, it's just the
It's all-
actual
Yeah.
filling out of the
Filling out
form
the
occurs
form.
in the executive session.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
All it
completing
does
the
is it
form
keeps the form
is
private.
the only thing that occurs in executive session. No
Yeah.
deliberations, no Q&A.
Right, because that already took place in the open session.
Yeah.
Because what?
The deliberation and discussion already took place during the open session.
Well.
So we go into executive session in order to just do the paperwork.
You
Right.
could, you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't keep score during the open session, you do the scoring.
Right.
Executive session.
Well,
So you have to write down and remember what you,
Yeah.
you had for a score.
Well,
You can't fill it out.
I don't know
Well,
that
it's
you, I
happening.
don't know that you should do the scoring in open session, that may be a vague point here. What you certainly can do is individuals on the, indicate your own personal sense about his performance or satisfactory and unsatisfactory aspects of it. And I don't know that you need to assign the grading, because it's, these things are shades of gray and stuff, and we may need to have if we're going to do all that in open session, we may need to have a meeting solely for the purpose of doing it. I would think that you could go into executive session and take a vote whether you give an E, G, S, F, or U on each one of these items. And record the result, without discussing it further than what you've already done.
I would suggest and someone higher up on the chain of command answer that question.
Or we may need to
That's
get
not
some
the way I read
clarification.
it.
Maybe you wish
Yeah.
to call Debbie Egan.
Yeah.
Well,
Ask her
I'd
that
like to get
specific-
Doug's perspective on that.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
either
that's-
Doug or, yeah.
When is this due? Prior to your anniversary?
No due date on it.
No, there isn't a specific due date.
Okay,
but it's-
all right.
How,
It's
The
usually
guidance from the
usually on or
personnel
about
committee
anniversary.
is to have annual
Mhm.
evaluations done,
Okay.
because apparently a large segment of
I just
departments.
want to
had
be
stopped.
sure that we don't have to have this resolved by the next meeting.
No, it does not need to be resolved on this.
Okay.
Is executive, meeting closed doors?
Yes.
We've done it before, so
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
be
yeah,
off.
that gets
Cameras
turned off and, yeah.
Throw the TV out, shut the door, close the guard.
Polish shades.
sounds like a jury
It's
trial.
the neighbor's court.
Is that it?
So anyway, so obviously there's some further clarification needed in that regards, but I just wanted to start the process
Just wanted to raise
with
it up.
anticipation that it could possibly be completed by October. So.
On September 28th, how long will you have been in position?
10 years, I think, but I gotta check that.
Yeah, would you please?
And it's 9 years then.
9. Time clock.
I
2004.
thought it was on 6.
September 2004.
My personal sense is, Brent, you don't have to lose any sleep over getting a reasonably good performance evaluation. But others may feel differently.
Glad to hear you said that.
They will tell.
So, anything else on the agenda?
Status reports, permits and enforcement. I was invited by Mr. John Coughlin today to accompany him to the upper cul-de-sac turnaround area where we examined the progress of removal of the incredible landscaping dump up there. This photograph has the concrete and other landscaping timbers and other debris that needs to be sent to appropriate disposal. This photograph shows the cleared slope. In examining the site, I found a portion of the site, and this is the best photographic representation I can give you. This shows a relatively gradual, a more stable slope or incline. This demonstrates a portion of the site that still had severe slopes and what I considered unstable. It's a small portion, I would say maybe a quarter of the overall arc of mounted material that they removed back. I advised Mr. Coughlin that I didn't believe that was stable, pointed out the difference between this small discrete portion of the site and the rest of the site, which he said his excavator contractor had assured him was stable, and I said, well, then this definitely can't be, because I don't even want to go down that. I'm afraid it would give away underneath me, and I don't believe you could vegetate it, so he will be calling me and inviting me back out to the site, I believe, when the operator gets equipment back out there to take care of that and massage the grade of that particular area.
Have we discussed this pile or this hill before?
Yeah, we issued, the commission
Yeah.
issued an enforcement order, and I'm in the process of finalizing the directive in regards to it. But yes, because it had intruded, we issued it on April 10th, 2013, and it intruded into the 100-foot regulated buffer zone, for which no permit was issued. Yeah, as well as we also found out that.
Actually, I wasn't here for that meeting, but.
Yeah, we also
I just
found
wanted to
out
be
that it
sure.
was a violation of solid waste regulations to be consolidating and having that type of area without a site assignment. issued by the Board of Health. Because it's handling
It's
solid
considered
waste.
a solid waste site?
Yeah, yeah, because we had a fairly good amount, 6-wheeler load of concrete debris and slabs, and then a pickup truck load full of landscape creosote, soaked landscape ties and other various pipe fittings and stuff there. Yeah, it's considered solid waste. Oh, and the pile in volume, it was a third the size of this building.
Okay.
It was a dump.
Okay. Plain and simple.
Yeah, material was being brought from other properties that they manage, as well as the fact he wasn't locking the gate up there, and other people were taking advantage and using it as a dumping site because it wasn't well monitored and secured.
Is there a gate up there?
Yes, there is. It's now being locked, and he's repositioned the boulders, although when I was up there today, the lock seemed to have disappeared, so he was sending somebody out to get the lock. And just to provide context, I'll pass those around. This is the area down on the frontage with Newburyport Turnpike that's been reseeded and vegetated. I gave him permission to remove the hay bale line today and suggested that he use the hay bales for mulching the dump site once they get it appropriately graded. As well as they're going to be coming in because the greenbrier, one of the pictures there I included, because the sunlight was reflecting off the leaves of the sprouting greenbrier, which was the problem to begin with, so they're going to go back in there and snip those off, but not the other vegetation. Whole bunch of little sprigs, because of course they couldn't get entirely the root systems out of there. As well as that is a native plant, even if it had developed monopoly characteristics in regards to that site, so they're trying to achieve some diversities. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that those two sites are proceeding along in regards to the commission's desire to have the property owner return to compliance.
Great.
Good. That's it.
Everyone asleep.
Well, we missed the first half hour of the Red Sox game. I actually stayed up and watched the end of last night. But I think I dozed off in the middle. Anyway, you ready to adjourn, Mr. Agent?
Yes.
Anybody else have anything else they want to add? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Adjourn.
Second. Dave? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?